exists. Okay, I'm calling to order the special meeting of the Economic Development Commission, December 15th. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's 8 o'clock. We picked, especially since there's a snowstorm coming, but I've heard it's not till midnight, so we should be okay. We picked this time based on advice that we got from childcare people, basically parents and providers. So thank you all for coming this evening. Here is the agenda, additions or deletions to the agenda. We always start with that. Approval of the minutes from December 1st. We do not have minutes from December 1st because the minute taker, Nikki, who does them sometimes from the recording, is on maternity leave. But the December 1st meeting, the full recording of the December 1st meeting is on the EDC website. Citizen comments. We have only one topic tonight, so we will expect citizen comments. Anyone who would like to speak. An important purpose of tonight is to give the public one additional chance to comment on the proposals that we're getting. We have already reviewed these proposals in public meetings before, but we wanted, because of the magnitude of this and the importance of the issue, we wanted to give it one chance. So we'll take citizen comments for, I don't want to say as long as is possible, as necessary, but we'll take significant citizen comments. We'll also try to incorporate questions from citizens during the presentation of the proposals, if there are any, although we will give the EDC members first crack at asking those questions. When we come to old business, when we come to the agenda itself, I want to just briefly take less than 1 minute to just remind people of the EDC priorities and where childcare fits. We'll go through each of the grant requests, and then we will vote either as a group or item by item, depending on the nature of the discussion. And then I would like to talk briefly about grant oversight and decide on that before we adjourn. So are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? All right, hearing none. We will hold off on approval of the minutes until we have presented the minutes. Are there any citizen comments? And if you can, please raise your, use the hand raising thing, or if your camera's on, you can wave your hand.
So I can.
Yeah, if you don't mind. That would,
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Are there any here would like to make comments? You don't need to. No, no citizen comments. Okay. Oh, sorry.
No, I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Carol.
So
you just say your name and what town you're from, just for the record, basically.
Yeah, my name is Caroline Olson. I'm from Woodstock, Vermont. And I just want to point out something important about the Rainbow proposal. The current director there has drove away 9 staff members in 5 months. So from October 2021 through March 2022. I personally spoke with 7 of those staff members, of those 9 staff members, who stated their primary reason for leaving Rainbow was because of this director. I was told by those 7 staff that the other 2 staff also left because of this director. The director is still in charge, and Rainbow is still understaffed and is unable to accommodate the amount of children they're licensed for. Their staffing problem has nothing to do with COVID or low wages, and has everything to do with an incompetent and unprofessional director. Prior to this director, Rainbow made it 1.5 years through the hardest part of COVID without any staffing issues, which was amazing. 6 of the former Rainbow staff members are still employed in early childhood education, 4 employed by other childcare facilities in the area. Those staff members did not leave for a change in career, but because they could no longer work under those hostile conditions for this director. Unfortunately, no amount of money will help Rainbow increase capacity so long as this director is in charge. Multiple staff members expressed their concerns to the board, which were unfortunately ignored in favor of this director. It's a waste of EDC money to give Rainbow $140,000 under current leadership because staff will continue to leave due to incompetence, unprofessionalism, mistreatment, and a hostile work environment. I hope the EDC does not grant Rainbow funding so the board can finally get the wake-up call they need and find a director that can actually help Rainbow thrive. We need Rainbow in our community, so I truly hope they can turn things around, but that's not going to happen under current leadership. Here's some math for you. 2 of the 9 staff that were driven away were actually fired by the current Rainbow board and director for speaking up against the current director. According to their proposal, had those 2 staff members stayed on, they could have 3.4 to 4.2 more children per staff. So 7 to 8 more kids currently enrolled in their program. But they willingly fired 2 staff for speaking up against this director. We unfortunately as a family spoke up against the director and we're also driven away. So we're no longer there. We miss that community. We wish we were still a part of it, but this needs to be made known, and $140,000 is not going to help them turn it around. It's getting rid of that director.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm just very passionate about it because we were mistreated, staff was mistreated, and I don't think they deserve funding in their current state.
Okay, all right, thank you, Carol. All right, are there other comments? There are 2 comments on the discussion forum that were posted publicly. Feedback. One feedback for a specific proposal, and one a general support for increasing childcare capacity from a parent who needs better childcare support. I don't think we need to summarize that one, but the one I just encourage, I don't know if EDC members have seen this comment or not. It was a letter from an attorney who was a Woodstock resident who basically, and Larry, I'll ask you to amplify what I'm saying, because I think you have a better sense of the reading of it, but I do want to summarize the comment. It's public. Basically suggesting that Bridgewater has spent has received significant grant funding, has spent a lot of money, that it seems like that amount of money should have been able to achieve what they are asking for, and questioning whether or not all of the things that they've said they would achieve have been achieved. Larry, do you feel comfortable sort of in general terms describing that comment, or?
Well, I think you've summarized it. It's a long, sort of impassioned screed about the use of funds by the Bridgewater Community Center, and but it's a lot of statements that are kind of his opinion on the misuse, I guess, of the funds that they've already got. And I think that the real question here would be since it's out there, is to ask the representative of the Bridgewater Community Center to just address it.
Right. And Milena is here, and she is aware. We've made her aware of this comment, and presumably she will address it.
There aren't any facts in here. There are. It's a long list of things that look like facts, but they're actually just opinions that are unsubstantiated. Basically, that the $1.2 million in grants that the community center has received have not been used appropriately, and should have, if used appropriately, should have taken care of the expenses that we're talking about funding, I guess, is the essence of it. So
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, so we'll give you a chance to. Milena's here, so
I think that the main thing would be to ask the folks from Bridgewater to address it. And I would think the same thing with what Carolyn Olson just said. I think Rainbow should address what she just said.
Agreed. Are there any other comments from any other citizen comments? Seeing none. All right, let's then move on. And Todd, when we I'm just going to highlight the EDC priorities briefly and give a quick. This is the same summary that we gave in the December 1st meeting, and then I don't know, Todd, if you as the chair of the working group want to sort of introduce us and maybe take us through the individual grant request, but I'm just going to take 3 or 4 minutes and just provide everybody with a broad overview and also tell you about the EDC's financial situation so that you can understand the financial context in which we would be making decisions this evening. I'm hoping that this is going to. Okay, first of all, just to remind everybody, the EDC has identified 5 priorities, and we have created actually working groups now in 4 of these areas. Expanding childcare capacity for Woodstock residents and employees, expanding housing for the local workforce, marketing Woodstock, physically rejuvenating the downtown area. I think supporting events for residents and people visiting Woodstock is still a priority, but our working group is now on hold until and if we find a demand for it. Thank you, by the way, for the posts. Feel free to to continue to post if you'd like. And Marion, would you
Do you know what the Wi-Fi password is here?
Yeah, it's right behind me.
It used to be.
Oh, it's
Here it is. Okay.
you got it? Yeah. And Marion, if you don't mind monitoring that, that
Yeah,
would make it much easier for
sure.
me. Thank you. And we have 4 programs, the community grants program. We have a grants manager who's posting on the listserv and soliciting help. There's more than a dozen people that are hopefully working on grants. I'm sorry, that's the grant writing support. The community grant program is open. As soon as this meeting is over, we'll start reminding people that applications are due in January. We have allocated up to $100,000 to support any programs, either in our 5 priority areas that are listed on the left or in any other area which creates economic or community development for Woodstock. The storefront incentive program, which incentivizes people to rent empty storefronts, is still in place, and we are evaluating a loan fund for Woodstock businesses to expand and grow. And that's tentative, but I expect it to be approved sometime in 2023. Now, the rest of the evening, we can focus on childcare, if I can advance the slides. This is a summary of the proposals that you'll be hearing from tonight. In total, we're looking at grant requests for $330,000 across 4 organizations. The organizations are focused in general on 2 of the most important childcare categories where we identified the greatest need: under 3 and after school programs. In total, these programs over the next 18 months for the longest impact, would we hope the plan is to create between 75 and 79 additional spaces. And you can see as each of the programs is asking for, the nature of their requests and the funding requests are quite different by organization. Rainbow is asking primarily for funding, or temporary funding, for the period of time in which teachers need to get up to speed and get funded. It's not, they don't cover their costs in the very beginning, but they do as spaces are filled. The Bridgewater and WCCC, the Woodstock Christian Child Care, are both asking for physical infrastructure to allow them to expand. And the community campus is asking for a financial cushion, relatively small financial cushion, because of their business model makes it very risky for them to expand and take the month-to-month risk. Their model is much more volatile than the other 3 models, and as they will explain in their proposal. So that's what's being requested. We expect that the capacity increases, if these grants were funded, would begin immediately, but would take, in some cases, up to 18 months in the case of the community campus. So between now and the capacity would kind of come online at different speeds and different races. I just want to give people a sense of this is in part to remind the EDC members of what our financial condition is. These numbers are a little bit hard to read, but fundamentally we have, if you want to consider this, we have unencumbered funds, meaning funds that we have not yet granted, of about $430,000 as of now as of the end of this year. We expect this past year with our revenues were $370,000. If 2023 is the same, we would have another $370,000. The only commitments we've made against that 370,000 is we have agreed to allocate up to 100,000 for the community grant program, which we will award those grants by the end of January, by the end of January. So if we were just going back, if we were to grant all of the grants that were applied for this evening, our reserves, so to speak, our accumulated funds that are available for grants, we would still have about $100,000 of that left. And we would then have our revenue for the remainder of 2023 that we would get. If we gave no more grants other than this and those, we would have, we'd have another $260,000 available for grants that would come in subsequent to the community grants. Remembering that we're going to have big grant requests from marketing. We hope to have big grant requests from housing and so forth. So we don't have unlimited funds. We do have the funds to award these grants should we decide to do so. And that's basically it. I'll come back afterwards. I'm just going to mention this now, and then Todd, I'll turn it over to you. We have never made grants as a bundle at this scale or anything close to it. The largest grants we've given in the past have been to marketing for $100,000, and we've done it close to that once before, about 4 or 5 years ago, when we first built the website, and for $50,000 to 1 or 2 grantees out of 90 grants that we've given. We all agreed informally that for these grants of this magnitude, and this may be the size of grants that we're giving going forward, because we're going to be moving to far fewer and bigger grants, that we need to have very careful oversight of the spending, not just at the time we make the decision, but beyond that, as the money is spent and then after it's spent, to evaluate it. And so I think there are 2 specific things that I'm going to propose when we're done, after we're done voting, but it might influence our vote. It would mine, because some of these grants, particularly given some of the questions that have been raised, I would not be comfortable giving unless we had this type of oversight or agreement in place. And so the things that I'm suggesting, which this is all open for discussion, are that we in writing document any grant specific requirements that are placed on the grant. That has been our practice, but we need to be very explicit about that. And I would suggest that in each case, we meet with representatives of a representative of the respective boards to review that grant agreement and to make sure that we're very clear before the money begins to be dispensed, that not just the executive director, but a representative of the board understands what our requirements are, understands what the grant money needs to be used for, and so forth. And then I would suggest that we appoint an EDC contact person, and Todd has actually agreed to act as that person for each of the grantees, and that we have quarterly progress updates from the grantees at public EDC meetings. That's all proposal. That's my ideas, but I just want people to we'll discuss that at the end. I just want you to have that in your mind in case it influences you, how you would think about the grants. Okay, and with that, I will stop sharing, and I think it's time to, are there any questions or comments about anything that I presented before we actually begin to go through the grants? Patrick, go ahead.
Are we voting today on what we're doing, or what? I just want to understand that process.
Yes, I think what I'd like to suggest, unless people disagree, is that we hear from each of the grantees first. We ask questions, give people a chance to hear, and then we decide. We can either vote as a package or we can vote one by one, depending on how we feel. And then after that, I would like to talk for 5 or 10 minutes about the oversight suggestions that I've made and what to take other suggestions and so forth. And I'd like to agree on those tonight as well.
Yeah, I raised the issue just from the standpoint of some of the comments that were made that were a little surprising.
Yeah, and we don't have to, just to be clear, I mean, we can vote to approve, we can vote to deny and don't ever come back to us, or we can vote to, we have more questions. I mean, if we need to take more time, we can make whatever decisions we feel are appropriate, but we will take that vote.
Okay, thanks, Todd, John.
Okay, are there any other questions about what I've just said? Okay, Todd, do you want to lead the discussion of the individual grants?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, John. First of all, thanks everybody for showing up. I think that, this 8 o'clock hour, again, it just speaks to the level of commitment that, I don't want to wax poetic, but like you hear it all the time in small government, we're all volunteers and people showing up at 8 o'clock plus on their Thursday in the holiday season. It's because we're here for the community and we're here to do the best that we can for the people that we live and work around and have shared space and shared relationships and shared memories and to grow and thrive. And that's what we're doing. And childcare has proved to be a pivotal area that the folks have come to us and said it's just a full-on disaster zone in Woodstock and beyond, the nation really. And what I want to say beyond thank you to my fellow EDC members is thank you to the childcare providers. We have 4 here who have gone in a long process. And I'll say I'm looking at these proposals today, and it's clear to me how much time and effort was put into it. And that's important. Why? Because when I go in a Tassville Country Store and I look at a government grant, I roll my eyes and I give up. Why do I give up? I said, I'm just going to do it another way. It'll take longer. It'll be this and that. What I'm seeing here is I'm seeing the boards and the folks and the providers and the directors coming to us and saying, look, we're willing to put in the time. We hear that you have opportunities for us and we want more kids in our centers and we want to help our community thrive. So I really think that, wherever these votes go tonight, they have to stand on their own merit, and whether it's a package or whether it's individual for each center, I just really am proud of the work put in. I just want to also highlight a few things because I'm a dual use here. I've got the school board and the EDC going for me in my charge for Woodstock. And each child that goes in the school system on average brings in $21,000 to the school district. You may or may not know the school district combined of seven towns in the area. It's a union. So if we just had 15 children coming into the district and staying, it would be $315,000 net gain. That's not fake money. Every year the district has a finance committee and they have to go and take many, many different numbers and formulate them. And that helps decide whether we can fix the air conditioning, whether we can get new teachers or hire new administrators or whatnot. So it's a significant amount of money. And we're talking about 75 children at $4,400 a year. That's not, that as Larry pointed this out, my colleague, he said that, look, it's not 75 children this year, it's ad infinitum. This will allow these facilities based on their projections to be self-sustaining models for this amount of children to continue for many years to come. So many hundreds and more of children can benefit potentially from these grants. I also will say that I do appreciate the public comments from the gentleman on the website and Carolyn. It takes a lot to say things like that. And I think we really need to go and hear from the providers and hear what they have to say and keep an open mind. And furthermore, I would say that the 1% occupancy tax and beverage tax, or however it gets broken down, is about economic development. When I started here with Deborah, we came in together and we said, oh, what do we do? Who are we? And we had a long discussion. And then we had a meeting last year where we did the annual grants process, which I thought went really well. But out of that came a frustration for childcare. And what we saw was that we needed to do something. And the EDC said they wanted to do something big. I'm not saying this is or isn't it. I feel personally it is. But I think that what we saw is over the last year, we've developed for our community and navigated what we think we need to do to evolve, to become a more successful trustee of that 1%. And I think this is a great example where anyone can come and say, hey, what is economic development? Well, we can say, well, look, this is children in the schools at $21,000 a year. It's a parent that might be put back in the workforce. It's a family that might be able to stay in or around Woodstock that otherwise has to leave due to the lack of childcare. So between this and housing and some of our other big working groups, the 5, I just think I'm really proud to be part of this big start. And I want to especially thank Larry, and there's others, Mika and John, of course, is always working, but we took a lot to get here. And I want to just say it's been a journey, and we're going to help children tonight, no matter what. And that's what this is all about. So with that, I'd like to go and have our first presentation, which, if the providers don't mind, we're going to invite Bridgewater Community Childcare to present first and talk about their pitch for their grant request. And we can also then comment on the public comment on the bulletin board, and see where we land. And then we'll continue after that with WCCC. And then whether the community campus or Rainbow wants to go next, that's totally fine. But I've sort of committed these 2 slots. So with that, I leave it to Bridgewater to take the floor and show us what you can do to help the children in and around Woodstock, Vermont. Thank you.
And could you come up? I think, I'm just looking at the camera here. Which side is here? You know what? Do you mind sitting over here just so that people can see you? And they'll be able to hear you too. You have a microphone, right?
Yeah, I will try to project
And if you
as
just
best as I can.
start by, well, you won't need to project because
Oh, okay.
the microphone is right there.
Thank you.
If you could just tell us your name and your affiliation with Bridgewater and then.
Yes, so am I looking? Milena Agan. I am a board member at the Bridgewater Area Community Fund, and our board chair, Brian, is here as well. So thank you for having us here. Thank you for accepting our application. And as I was driving over here, I realized that 12 years ago, my daughter Orly was on a wait list at Rainbow Play School. So for over 6 months. So not much has changed in 12 years. So thank you for trying to change that. Yeah.
What I would suggest, since your proposal, Todd, if you don't mind, if your proposal is on the website and
Yep.
the EDC has seen it once before.
Yep.
For the people, there's 30 people on the meeting now. So
Sure.
just take 5 minutes and tell us what you're asking for.
Absolutely.
And how much expansion it will provide. And then let's
Sure.
have the EDC members ask questions, and then members of the community can ask questions as
Okay,
well.
sure. Yeah, so we are so for those of you who don't know, we are in Bridgewater, where the Bridgewater Village School used to be, and has since closed down. So in 2018, the Bridgewater Area Community Fund was formed. And in 2019, we got a lease from the town to take the building. And the mission of the board was to restore and repurpose the building so that it becomes, the heart of the community again. And then the board realized that there was a need for childcare. This was not in the original plan. And this year in June of 2022, we opened one classroom, and the classroom serves 14 children, and the ages range from 16 weeks to 36 months of age. Sorry, I get nervous when I talk in front of people. And we have 4 staff members, including our director, who could not be here tonight because she is working on her master's. So I'm going to do my best to answer all of your questions. Of the 14 children that we currently serve, from June to right now, there's been a range of 50% to 69% Woodstock residents, families that we serve, and 38% to 23% of employees are Woodstock residents as well. And our wait list currently, as of the end of November, has been 50% Woodstock residents as well. And we don't really foresee that changing much because of our proximity to the area. And that breakdown can be found in the document that is online. So what are we asking for? When we open the center, we realized quickly that we still have a huge waiting list. So we also have this wonderful space, and we thought we could service more families in the area. And so we're asking for $100,000 to open a second classroom. And these funds would help with bringing the classroom that we currently have, that we want to use for this space, up to code. Basically, that's what we need. This building was built in 1914. Yeah, that part of the building was built in 1914. So it needs a lot of love and care, and there's environmental things and what is it called? Preservation things that go along with it. So So that's where the money is going, as well as outfitting the classroom. So adding this class would add an additional 24 spots for infants and toddlers aged 6 weeks to 36 months. And it would open up more infant spots and toddler spots in the current classroom that we have. And additionally, it would staff an additional 6 more staff members. So giving more employment to the area. The budget narrative is also found in the document that's online, but again, it's mostly for equipment, construction, renovations, for bringing the building up, not the building, but that classroom up to code, and then training of employees, because our framework and pedagogy methodology is in line with Ellen Tad's framework for WISE education. We work closely with Creative Lives, and this is a program that we're partnering with, and we are their pilot program for this methodology. And so all of our staff gets trained for this methodology. And so they need the training. And so that's why that $2,400 is itemized for that. So if we have any questions about the budget narrative, I'm happy to try to answer those. And then the project timeline, we have right now, we just signed a contract with a contracting company. We have all of our permits, and we finalized our architectural plans. So that's all set. Construction has begun, so yay. We during the winter months are going to order furnishings and kitchenette appliances that you need for childcare. And construction is hopefully going to begin in the spring. We will order furniture and start window restoration and painting. And then in the fall of 2023, our timeline is set for setting up classrooms, purchasing soft goods, assembling furniture, having licensing visit, sending out family contracts, and hiring staff, with the goal of opening that second classroom in December of 2023. So that, in a nutshell, is our proposal, which, if I may, I'd like to kind of backtrack and address Mr. Gaddafi's comments on the website, because I think it actually, what it did, it actually gave us a way to not explain, but to look back into those 5 years and say, yeah, it's been 5 years, but there's a timeline there. If we go back and look at what I just talked about, the foundation, excuse me, started in 2018. We didn't get our lease until 2019. Then COVID hit, putting a stall on a ton of things. We started our fundraising. We can't, because of federal and state bidding processes, you can't really start construction or sending out for bids until you have monies in hand. And then after COVID, bids came in about $1 million gap, right? Things were much more expensive than they were when we first went in. And so then we had environmental stall for about 10 months that we had to deal with. So then you're at 2021. And so then here we are. We have some of the monies. We raised 1.2 million. We spent half of that, a little over 4. Okay, and then we still have some, but those are state and federal grant monies that are reimbursable. We don't have them, right? And they're just sitting there and waiting, right, for us to go through these bidding processes for us to be able to use them. So what Mr. Gaddafi's comment really did is, yeah, it's been 5 years, but there's reasons behind why it's been 5 years. And I think that, we have an amazing project manager who, if anybody has any questions about anything, he'd be really happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
All right. Todd, do you want to call on people, or you want me to, or I can't see?
Todd's
Yeah,
got his hand
yeah,
up.
I think if anyone in the room maybe has questions first, and if not, we can go to the EDC members that are on Zoom, and we can then go to public comments if that works for everybody.
Any comments in the room? Any questions? No, there's only, you can see almost there's only 2 other people here in the room, so.
I assumed it was standing room only, and you were doing a mirror trick, but okay, roger that. Then great, Amika?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was great, and for all the work that you've put into this. I think I've asked this question before, and I think it's been addressed, but I'm just going to ask one more time for my own memory's sake. Do you feel like you already have a line on the staff that will be required that you're going to need to hire, or are you concerned at all about filling those spots?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think that's one of the biggest risks, right, in growing, because it's one of the biggest risks right now in childcare and education, in business, finding staff and keeping staff. And one of the things that we've had success with is our partnerships with Let's Grow Kids and Creative Lives. And those 2 organizations and our partnerships and our resources and pulling together with them has worked out great because they have resource in helping finding professionals already in the field and professionals who may not be in the field but who want to be in the field, and the resources to train them to be in the field as qualified and for licensing in the field. And so we had great success already with them finding staff.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Larry?
Yeah, I have just a couple of questions. One is a kind of a technical one. What is are you a legal entity, or is it the Bridgewater Area Community Foundation? Who would be actually the grantee in this case?
It would be the Bridgewater Area Community Foundation. So we are a 501(c)(3).
C3.
Thank you. I always get those mixed up. So we are all under the umbrella of the BAC board.
So any grant we made would be to the Bridgewater, would not be to the Bridgewater Community Childcare, it'd be to the foundation.
The foundation would have to approve the grant. Yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Another question. We're being asked to fund 69% of construction and renovation costs and 72% of equipment costs. Would you have any trouble with us making a condition of our grant that you secure the balance? It says that it'd be cash match and or additional grants. So it didn't look like from what was written that you actually had that money in hand.
We do.
Our board chair says we do.
You have it in hand.
Yes.
Okay, so
Can I
So
just,
you would-
Larry, can I piggyback on that question? Because we discussed these percentages and whether they were, how they were calculated at the last meeting.
Yes.
I think overall, there's another major chart here, which basically says this is a $200,000 project
Yes.
in a variety of things. You're asking us for half of the money
Correct.
and so forth. And that other half of the money, the full 100, the other 100,000 is in hand.
Yes.
Okay, and so if we were to make this, then we would, if we were to make the grant contingent on that, you would have no problem with that because you already have the funding.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Larry, go ahead.
no, that's fine. That's basically what I was asking. And just going back to this attorney Gadapi, or what?
Yes.
His letter. Are we being asked to fund anything that you've already been covered in the 1.2 million that you've received, or is this an Excel a self-standing or independent grant that you're asking? He's suggesting that there's a duplication, and I just want to hear that there's not, or there is.
I think Larry, can you just explain your question again? I think Elena's,
Yes, sorry, I'm
Unclear
not,
what
I'm
you mean.
unsure of the question.
Okay, I think as I read the gist of the letter that's on our website from Attorney Gadapi.
Mhm.
He is saying that, that we're just, we're funding something that the 1.2 million, should have already paid for.
Oh, I understand. Yes. Yeah,
You're welcome to comment if
you
you'd
can
like,
comment, Brian, if
but
you'd
if
like.
you do though, you just have to come up to the table.
Yes, it was outside of our original scope. So when BAC was originally formed and the restoration of the building began, the childcare was not part of that scope. So this is completely different scope.
Okay.
Does
Yeah,
that
I
answer
heard-
your question?
Yes, you said that earlier and I wrote it down, but
Okay.
I wanted to hear it in the context of that, but.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right, great. Thanks, Larry. Patrick?
My question kind of piggybacks on that one. The 1.2 million that you've gotten so far, is that work done?
No,
Okay, and would any of that work affect the setting up of this classroom and running it?
I don't think so. Brian? No, because it's completely separate.
Physically separate.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, and so the safety of the building and so forth, all that is good for increasing the size.
Yes.
Okay, and what was the number of additional students you'd be able to take?
24, so it'd be increased by 67%.
Okay, and I guess you're just basically handling 6 weeks to 36 months or 3 years old.
Correct.
Okay, that's it. That's my questions.
Okay, Deborah? Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much. I know this can be kind of a grueling process and very public, and I appreciate all the work that you do, and I'm really excited that we're here tonight. I'm again piggybacking. I think most of my questions are answered through Larry and Patrick, but I just want it to be, if there's a way to speak it incredibly clearly to the larger group about the distinction between having, it sounded like you said you have 600,000 still available to you that is somehow connected to the work that you're doing. And I just want to make it clear that it's not, that
Mhm.
that the ability to bring these students in with our help is not contingent in any way to when that 600,000 gets into your hands to do the other things in the building, that they're two separate things. Can you clarify that for me?
Yeah. Do you want to?
So the big.
Am I saying it right? That's what I'm.
Just sit over
Yeah.
here, just so that the mic.
Gonna,
Yes, so the 600, what we have left in federal, mostly federal and state grants, is already earmarked for other projects within the building. So that has nothing to do with classroom 2, which we're calling. That these funds will support.
Okay, so just the concern on website that we saw is just in a way misguided. It's heading toward, it's looking at the building and thinking it's the same thing, but it's not at all. And our money will allow you to have the students in.
That's correct.
correct.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. Michael?
Yeah, am I correct when I was reading that, are we entertaining 2 grant requests from your group, Milena? And if we are we only doing, if it's only this one, is it because there's more of a demand in that age range versus the after school program? And I guess the second part I have is what's the term on your lease?
Yeah. So we added the after school program notes because there was interest in the after school program. But we did not ask for the monies at this point. We just put it out there that we're doing that because we have the space. And so we are going to move forward with the construction and the addition of an after school program in our building because we have the ability to do so. But it is not within the scope of this grant request. And then in terms of the lease,
Yeah.
Brian.
So currently, Michael, we're under a 5-year lease and we're in year 4. And I've talked to the select board already. We're gonna increase that to a 10-year lease next.
Okay, so you guys have first right of refusal on that. And is that a repeating clause?
It is.
Is
That's
that
all I
a-
got. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. I'm
Is
gonna,
that
I'd like-
additional 10 years on that lease, just to clarify that?
What was it?
Is it an additional 10 or is the 5? Is it an additional 5?
It'll be an additional 10.
Okay.
great. We're talking about, yeah, one community in and of itself, right? John, did you have comment? I was gonna hold my comment for after and let Roger go first. John, do you have something to say? Or would you like to hold also after Roger?
No, Roger usually asks good questions, so go ahead.
Yeah,
Roger.
Roger, that's what I was thinking. Roger, would you please mind going as our de facto EDC member? Thank you.
I'm not sure I can accept that, but this is for me an absolute yes. There are apparently some marginal questions that seem to me much more to do with the building and the organization of the building than this childcare operation. It seems to me that they've answered every single question and that they have a plan for going forward. And I would urge the town of Woodstock to go forward with this. It's a great initiative. This entire childcare thing is a great initiative. And I would urge us to not lose this opportunity because of carping from the sidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. John?
Yeah, I just, sorry, when you were, all of my other questions, thank you for my colleagues who've gone before, you've asked the questions I was gonna ask. But I just, when you mentioned the legal, someone asked about which would the entity, Larry asked, what would the entity, and you said it's the overall foundation, which is the 501c3. And are you board members of that, or are you board members of childcare, or is there only one board?
There's two. So the foundation, I'm the president.
Of the umbrella?
Of the overall, and the childcare committee is within that.
Okay, and you are a board member,
And a committee member, yes.
you're a board member of the foundation?
Yeah.
And
And
a member of the
of the
committee that
yes.
oversees childcare?
Correct.
Okay, and the fiduciary responsibility for childcare and legally lies with the umbrella
The umbrella.
Right.
foundation,
Correct.
of which you're both members?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That's it, Todd, thanks.
Great. Thanks, John. So my only questions are, is this the thermometer that I saw for like 3 years?
Yes.
Okay, so the thermometer, I was like, they're never gonna raise that money. Good job. You got the, great.
Thank you.
So I literally, I was like, no, that thermometer is never moving. So I just want to be clear, it's 24 new spots of the area of greatest need, which is where 8 families were going to move away from Woodstock and Upper Valley. So this is 20, we're saying, I just want to be absolutely clear that if you get this money on the timetable you provided, barring some disaster we'd have to discuss, you're going to be able to go and provide 24 slots of greatest need. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Todd, I don't know if Marion has,
Well, just my only question is, we were gonna talk a little bit about oversight and procedure, and is that something we want to talk about as it applies to all?
yeah, I
Okay,
think it would
okay.
apply to all of them.
Okay.
I don't think, yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay.
I just have,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll just have to clarify for the board members, you folks, to know this room. The room we're talking about for funding is about the same size, so, with 12 foot ceilings. It's our biggest classroom in the whole building.
Thank you.
I think that if there's no other public comments and no other EDC comments, I think we're prepared for the next presentation by WCCC.
So there's someone here raising their hand. Can you just say your name, and you can do it. I think you can be heard there, but just say your name. And
Yeah, I'm Patrick Proctor. I'm the treasurer for the Rainbow Play School Board. And I have 3 children under 4. So my schedule is kind of constrained tonight, but I was chosen to be the person to officially respond to the public comment. And I was wondering if I could squeeze in quickly and make a brief response between the two.
Yes, let's just get to between presentations, which we might be at right now.
That's what I thought. That's what I was.
Are we between presentations? Tom?
Yes, I think we can hold the rainbow public comment response for the rainbow section, if that's okay with the rest.
Well, the problem is that this gentleman has young kids and
Oh,
would like to make
okay,
a comment now.
Okay, I understand. Let's wrap up the BCC and thank them for their time, and we'll go to public comment for the rainbow response. That's fine. Does it work for everybody else? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Yeah.
both.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you guys for having.
All right, Todd, so, I'm
John,
sorry.
go for it.
People up here?
No, I think you can be heard. Go ahead. Is it Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, I can't be seen though. but I-
You're welcome to
Yeah,
come up.
okay.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Just a
So,
full name, John, right?
yeah, sorry.
My name is Patrick Proctor, and I'm the treasurer for the Rainbow Board. We recently had a transition where Lauren, who will be doing our presentation this evening, she retired as president of the board. And so Kelly Barger, who's also on the call, became the new president, and I'm the new treasurer, which Kelly had been formerly. We wanted to comment on the community input about the Rainbow program, and I was chosen to comment on that because I just came on the board about 3 months ago, and I just became treasurer last month. So I'm very much removed from events of the past year in terms of a formal involvement. We wanted to say that, first of all, we have 1,000% confidence in Leah as the director of the program. She's doing a fantastic job, and we have many happy families, and we are currently hiring new staff all the time, and we have a really vibrant community that I think is miles away from where it was in the middle of the pandemic, and all the challenges we were dealing with then. And we have a lot of great new teachers, a lot of great young teachers, and it's a really wonderful place where Rainbow Play School is right now. We are aware that there is a family in the community that had some issues with Leah's role as director and how Rainbow was run. And these issues date back to, as I understand it, almost a year ago. And some formal complaints were filed with the state, which obviously takes a lot of time, especially in COVID times, for them to process all the paperwork, do all these things. I believe 2 of them have been resolved and dismissed and ruled in our favor. We still have 1 open complaint, which our attorney, who is Rich Windish, who works in town, has advised us that we should not respond about those complaints publicly until they are resolved with the state, simply because it's in the state's hands, and so it's not really a public discussion issue. And so if there are community questions about those things, I hope that everyone will understand that we are excited and enthusiastic to resolve them as well as possible within the Rainbow community, and that it's simply something that we can't comment on specifically because of all the paperwork and because it involves children and privacy and all these different issues. And so if anybody has any questions about that, I think it's pretty clear cut, but I'm happy.
I would like to interject there because I didn't mention anything
Carolyn.
about that.
Carolyn, just give us a moment to, let's just keep the order, but.
That wasn't what my comment was about. So my comment was about.
Carolyn, hold on. I'm sorry, hold on. We're just
Okay.
gonna keep public
Hold
order.
on 1 second. Yeah, Patrick, I'd just like to say that unfortunately, I think that we need to, well, I don't know whether we need to go through this during the Rainbow thing. I mean, if you literally can't be here, then I think that formal sequencing of things should be set aside. We should just call on people. So how long can you, if you can, I think it's an important issue. If you're here right now, Todd, are you okay if we just, all right, so Marion and then Carolyn.
Yeah, so the concerns, as I understood them, had to do with the relationships with staff members. And it sounds like you're talking about some complaints from families and parents, and I don't know.
A family.
Okay, but it sounds like there's another issue that I don't know if you're also willing to respond to, but it sounded, the issue that was brought up in our meeting tonight had to do with, difficulty. Basically, as I understood it, it was saying that the reason that they aren't able to keep staff had more to do with the management and administration than to do with money, and that would be really relevant in how we think about this grant. And so that's an important thing for us to understand.
Yeah, and so I guess the 2 comments I would have about that is, the first one is that right now we have a very vibrant and happy staff community. We've hired a lot of people. We have a lot of folks who are very involved and very excited about the children. I have 3 children enrolled there, so I know a lot of the staff personally, and it's a really exciting program and it's going really well. I also know that some of the previous staffing issues and previous staff departures were tied up in the complaints that I'm talking about. And so it's not really a
something that can be commented on, except to say that those staff members chose to leave, and we took it in stride, and we have, repopulated the staff, and it's, everybody's very happy. So.
Carolyn, you've disappeared off the camera, but I don't, if you're still there, I think you wanted to make a comment. There you are.
Sorry, I have a newborn here. He's 2 weeks old, so I'm
Congratulations, Carolyn.
definitely, thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with that. Staff had left before there were any issues with that family. And there were some staff that towards the end said, we don't like the way that you've treated this family, and we don't like the way that this director has treated us. If you don't get rid of this director, then we're gonna leave ourselves. Board said it was gonna get better, things didn't get better, so 3 staff left after that, but there were 6 staff that left before that that had nothing to do with this family matter.
Well, and what I can address with that is that I specifically joined the board because there was this question of, does the board have enough transparency? Is the board trying to improve whatever miscommunication was going on? And I really do think that it was a product of miscommunication and not ill intent or ill will on anybody's part. And so I joined the board in order to do that. And so I have now been on the board for 6 months. And I think, we have a totally different staff and approach, and everything is, I think that we had a transition because we had a new director, and we had staff that were used to the old management style, and we had a director who had a new management style. And I think that our new management style is a bit more formalized. Leah is somebody who has a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge about how things can be organized and be structured so that they're fruitful for the whole community. And I think that we really wanted to help her succeed with that, because she moved here at great cost to herself and a great distance. She left family, friends, that kind of thing. And so we wanted to support her. And I think that my intent in joining the board was to be able to support her and give her the resources she needed to kind of see her vision for the school. And I think that that's happened, and things are going very well in the wake of that. And I think that we all know, in the midst of the pandemic, when, staffing and people's job satisfaction and all these kinds of things are a national issue that everybody's confronting with and reeling with. And that's part of the issue that we're dealing with at a macro level for this problem. And so I don't know what to say, except to say that we feel strongly that Leah is doing a great job, and that the staff who are on board are happy. And I suppose if there were some question of wanting to kind of keep in touch with us about hiring and staff and that kind of thing in the wake of our grant, that would be something we'd be happy to do. And my main goal is joining the board was to make it more transparent and more workable and more, open up communication channels. And so that would be my hope moving forward as treasurer on the board.
Okay, Todd, is your hand raised? Todd and then Deborah.
Yeah, I think, running a business has ups and downs with staff and otherwise. And I think what we need to make sure is that, we're not contributing to an environment that isn't fruitful for the town and the surrounding areas. I think that, again, to reiterate our greatest need, we're talking about 18 to 21 slots. And I think that what's going to happen, Carolyn, if this could assuage your fears a bit, let's say there has been a change, let's say things have gone in the right direction. We aren't in the position of deciding on a procedure where we're going to be, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know we'll have to discuss this as a group at the end of the meeting and perhaps otherwise, but we're not going to be going and saying, here's a bunch of money and let us know when the kids show up. So I really think that if you're in a position where you're not going to be able to hire people, our risk will be mitigated as town dollars are spent, because we'll have these metrics in place. So if X amount of children aren't added for X amount of teacher and so on and so forth, because you might have these ongoing issues, there would be minimal impact, I believe, to the EDC funds that are granted. So I think that at the end of the day, we can go all night on discussing what's probably quite valid personal and emotional issues that I really feel for, and I can see both sides, and all are good people. But there's nothing for us to gain by spending a lot of time discussing what we do or don't know about the director, and there's more to gain on understanding that there's 16 to 21 infant slots. There's families leaving, and hopefully we'll come up with a procedure that monies won't be doled out without metrics that are appropriate risk mitigation. So I would say that we don't spend too much time on this, even though it is very important, but I think we've heard both sides of the story. And so I would ask that we move on from this issue.
All right, I'm gonna just let the people who have raised their hands, Carolyn, Deborah, and Roger make a comment, and then we'll move on. I do just want to make, from a technical point of view, it's not, in this particular case, all of the funding that Rainbow is requesting is to fund new hires. And so if there isn't a new hire, if there is some inability to hire people, which as a result of this concern about leadership, then there won't, that would be very unfortunate from a childcare capacity point of view, but the EDC won't be expending any funds, since we wouldn't expend funds until the person is hired. It's just making a timing. I'm supporting the point that Tyler, you said. All right, so Carolyn, Deborah, and Roger, and then that will be it, and we'll move on to the next application, and we'll come back to Rainbow later in the evening. Deborah, I'm sorry, Carolyn first, and then Deborah, and then Roger.
Yeah, it just seemed like the question was being deflected, and it didn't actually address the fact that the staff was leaving. So my concern is that you do give them funding to hire employees, and then those staff leave. So that leaves you giving funds, and then staff leaves because of leadership. But it didn't seem like Patrick was addressing any of the concerns that I had.
Just dancing around it.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that, you know, John, you were talking about having oversight of these grants. And I think that, again, like I said, part of the reason that I joined the board was to increase transparency and communication at Rainbow. And so I think if we wanted to do something where EDC funds, I don't know if it would be a management nightmare for you guys, but where if they're incremental or if they're stipulated on the staff, remaining on staff, any kind of thing, like there's no smoke and mirrors here, you know, so.
And I think those kinds of contingencies or performance metrics, that's what I was talking about. All right, Deborah, and then Roger.
Yeah, thank you for coming in, Patrick. I think it's unfortunate that we're dealing with this conversation prior to actually going over what, you know, the proposal. And I know we're going to do that it's a little bit out of order right now in order to put you in, but and so I think that's really important to look at so that we have a greater understanding. My concern is that there's feels like there's some sweeping comments that make it harder to understand. So I think if something like this is going to go forward, it really needs some oversight. When you say there are lots of new hires and lots of good feeling, it's a little bit vague for something that feels this serious, in the sense of like, okay, how many people left when? How many are new? You know, when did you come in? What, you know, okay, so you have a bunch of new hires, they've been there 2 weeks, or they've been there a month and a half, like what the tenure is, what's the oldest person that's been there, how long is the person that's been there the longest, that might have insight into before, after, and during. I think that that's going to be really important to understand the landscape, rather than there was a problem, a huge exodus happened, and now we're cool because we have all new staff. I think it just needs to be a little bit with greater understanding. And I also like the solution that Todd gave, which is that there does, for something like this, it does need to have oversight if the grant is directly involved with the issue that may exist.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. I'd like, Roger, if you don't mind, can we go to Larry first, just to get the EDC members, since you don't want to join?
No problem.
All right, Larry. You're on the, Larry, can't hear you, sir.
You're unmuted in Zoom, but your microphone is muted on your computer somehow.
I'm doing that on purpose. I'm just kidding. Larry and I always play.
Here,
Yes, there you go, Larry.
okay, I was, Patrick, is Lauren going to present tonight, or who's going to present?
Yeah, Lauren's going to be presenting, I think, after one or two other presentations. I just had to get home to my kids, so I came in to comment.
We met, the only reason I asked that is that when we met with Lauren and a couple of other people at Rainbow, she went through a quite convincing discussion about the whole process that Caroline's bringing up and why things have changed and what way things have changed. So I would look forward to her addressing that when she makes her presentation. I think she's got a lot of more detail that Deborah would help Deborah.
Have other Rainbow parents spoken?
I don't know, but no one has identified themselves as a Rainbow parent, or nor do I think of any other parents spoken, actually.
No, I can comment on this through the 100+. This doesn't mean that it's not relevant. I don't want to dismiss anything. That's not right. But I just want to say that out of the 100+ responses in the survey, then the 40 others that you all got in survey number 2 and the private emails I received from dozens of families and the different providers, all included, we haven't had any other comment. It doesn't mean that there's not an issue or that people shouldn't have reached out, but I think the awareness is out there of what we're doing. But no, there have been no other comments as far as I'm aware of.
Okay,
Roger.
I'm happy to speak. I'm a Rainbow parent, and I'm happy to chime in when I can. I'm sorry, I just had sick kids, so I'm coming in late to this.
All right, Stephanie, you know what? Why don't we'll call, if Roger doesn't mind. Roger, shake your head. Is it okay if Stephanie goes?
I am not a parent, so parents should speak first.
So
All right,
I've been a
Stephanie.
Rainbow parent for the past year and a half, 2 years, and I cannot say good enough things about Rainbow. I know we've had staffing challenges and there have been issues over the past year. And since things have settled down, the curriculum is amazing. The teachers are wonderful. My daughter loves going to school every day. The notifications, everything, it's incredible. We're not having teacher outages. We're able to hire more teachers. I think there was a rough spot that we went through. And I think the entire country is going through this. It's hard to get people it's hard to hire staff and to keep them in this area. It's difficult. I mean, we all know the different challenges. We have difficulty with hiring, with housing and everything. It's a problem everywhere. And I don't think bringing up what has gone on is any indication as to things that are negative about Rainbow. We've seen improvements over the past 6-9 months, and it's awesome. I really cannot say enough positive things about it, and I don't think these couple of months should impact any decisions.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think something, just to interject quickly, Carolyn and other people that have those feelings, they're real feelings, and we need to be respectful of that, what you were, and I appreciate your kind words about that. But I think that if we dissect what you're saying, you're clearly stating that progress is being made, and you feel that progress as someone that came in after this institutional issue. So I hope that's true, and I hope that that can be explained further by Lauren, because we need the answers to this. So
I've been there throughout. So I was there prior to these institutional changes. I've been there for at least 2 directors, and currently I haven't seen as good of communication as we've seen now than I even saw with the prior director.
But you're saying it was a process that you saw and it's evolving in the right direction?
Yes, 100%. I really could not be happier. I love the way that things are trending over the past 9-10 months.
Okay. Well, thank you, Stephanie. Let's let Roger get in here.
So I obviously cannot speak to any of these specific issues about staff performance on whatever level, but from a kind of operational standpoint, the EDC's job, as I understand it, is to seek grants that benefit the community, and however you want to define economic or whatever, doesn't really matter to me. The EDC's job is to make sure that those grants are being spent as they were proposed to be spent, and not to intervene or have really any kind of relationship into the running out of an individual organization or business. And to John's point earlier, obviously it's very important to codify and institutionalize metrics and measurements for any grant that that is done. Beyond that, it's not the EDC's job to adjudicate individual organizations' operational issues or organizational issues. So we haven't heard the proposal yet, obviously, but I urge you to address it in that manner, not in the manner of dealing with trying to drill down into how an organization runs itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Joe?
I respectfully disagree with Raj. We have a responsibility to the taxpayers who are contributing to the EDC funding to make sure that the funds are spent responsibly. And I think it is our responsibility not to delve in, as he put it, or participate in the management structure of any organization. But I think it's our responsibility to assure ourselves and the community that we're making wise choices and that we're being responsible about how we're spending this money. And I think without going into, well, who's doing what, where, but at least have a good feeling that it's a sound foundational investment for the community is our responsibility. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. I think just to touch on that, I think both points are seen, and I think that's why we have such a public, and Chair Spector has such a public outpouring of please come to our meetings, please read our documents, and here we are here discussing in an open forum these issues. And I applaud Carolyn and Rainbow for having a civil discussion on the public record about this stuff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Todd, should we move to I know you had a sequence that you had.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go, even though it feels Rainbow now, I'm going to go with WCCC.
Okay, Todd, hold on one second.
I just wanted to thank you both for accommodating me, and I really appreciate it. And I know Lauren will give a great presentation later on. Thank you so much
for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you. This is a lot of good stuff. We're hashing it out. This is good. I think WCCC is in line to present next. I'm not sure if it'll be Carrie or Ruth. They're both fine people, and either one of them will do a great job. Who's doing it?
I'm going to start here. I'm Carrie Bristow. I've been in the community since 1980 and have been a longtime teacher at the Woodstock Union Middle High School as a Spanish and French teacher. And I've also been a founder of the WCCC program at the First Congregational Church in Woodstock. And our hope is that you will support the program that we have instituted due to parent and community concerns around childcare after school. So at this time, we have instituted, going back 2 weeks now, an after-school program for grades pre-K and up. We could go as much as 12-year-olds, but we don't have 12-year-olds in this program. And we have the personnel and the place ready for them to come on a daily basis for the last week and a half. However, our request is around different furniture and things that we need. And I will defer to our director, Ruth Brisson, who can outline that more eloquently than I can. Thank you.
Fantastic, Ruth. Take it away.
Is there a way for me to share my screen? Will that work?
John can do that. You have to ask him nicely, and he gets really weird about it, but I think he can do it.
I just did a little brief PowerPoint to just highlight a couple of things because I understand everyone's already seen the proposal and should be able to just point out a few things.
Yeah, just take us briefly through it for sure, and John will give you the power.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, okay, let's see if this is working.
Any technical issues are John's fault.
Okay, open system preferences. Hold on, it's asking me a question. It is technical difficulty. Let's see. Hold on. I just have to give myself permission to do this.
While she's doing that, I can say perhaps a little flavor on this, that certain kids can't take the bus from Woodstock Elementary. Those are the littlest ones, the tiny ones, the youngest. And so Woodstock, the Union School District has offered to take their current staff in without overtime hours and sort of shuttle them to WCCC for this care, which currently is the only potential opportunity available. Otherwise, those parents have to pick the kids up and be disrupted from the workforce. So there is a special circumstance with the youngest of the children, which is our biggest area of need, even in being allowed to take the bus, or who can pick them up, what parents are guardians, and if they're on the list, and this and that. So it's a very interesting narrow scope, and WCCC, of course, is across the green and down Elm Street there. So
Okay, I'm trying to share now and we'll see how this goes.
all
Okay.
right. I would
Can
never.
people see my screen currently?
Everything here says childcare. That's very safe and
Okay.
good. It's very good.
Yep, it is. Let's just go in and we can start this. Well, I hope to anyway. For some reason, I'm clicking on it. It doesn't want to go. Give me
Wait,
one
Ken,
second.
keep going. No, right down where you were there. There's a little. keep
I'm
going
trying to
right,
find the little button, but my eyes are
right.
tired.
To the right, keep going to the right. One more, two, right there.
There we go. Thank you. Can't see that well.
Are you on page one though?
We will be in a second. There we go. Okay, so.
I see a very adorable young person. Is this correct?
Yes, he is. Anyway, I just want to thank everyone for being willing to go through these proposals again. Ours is, as Carrie outlined, was about expanding from our current license for 30 children to move up to, originally we were going to do 50. And then we decided, after talking to licensing, we actually have space to be able to expand our license to 55, which for us is an 83% increase in our enrollment size. So initially, the first 50 slots are meant for the children we currently have in our infant room, our toddlers room, and our pre-K, our full day pre-K. And then we're prioritizing right now 20 spaces for after school program. And this all came out of a partnership of many conversations and ways of trying to help both the families that currently have their children at West and some of our families who have moved on to West or who are still with us and need after school care for some of the siblings. So we went through a process of getting all of the approvals from agencies. So that's all been completed. Our technical visit with our licensor went extremely well. We were able to have that technical visit because we actually were able to borrow some furniture and things from the church that we're in and that we're housed in from their Sunday school rooms. And so currently we're using those items. And so our request for funding is around creating this mobile classroom that we're able to use, one for after school currently. We will use it some for pre-K in the mornings at times, and then in the summer to be able to use it in order to do an additional summer group or two, depending on our staffing at that point. So the mobile classroom's been started with temporary items, and so now we're requesting funding to, one, get the permanent items that are on wheels and that we can move in and out of there on Fridays and Mondays.
And then also some items for our outdoor space, which is critical for having this number of children. We need activities, and we have a playground area that was very nicely done when it was first done, but we've been there for 28 years. And so it was time to take on some renovations there. So I'm going to just go into our next piece. And these are just what I'm going to highlight: our funding request, our current enrollment data since we've already started the program, and where we project enrollment will go. A little bit about the risks, which are no different than any other childcare, and the financial impact. I'm just have that there in case anybody wanted to look at it again. So for us, we're primarily targeting for the after-school program pre-K to second grade. Right now, I believe we have some kindergartners and we might have one first grader. But what we found is we had a list of like 27 families that needed care and that we got from the elementary school. Because of the time frame of how long it took to get all of the agency approvals we needed in order to use this new classroom space, some families were able to find other sources of care. And so right now we've started and we have about 14 full-time slots filled. That means though that we're serving about 19 families, but we have a lot of families who are sharing a full-time space. So some families only wanted 2 days, some families wanted 3, and we were able to put them together to meet their needs. We have 2 additional children that'll take full-time spaces in January, so we'll be at 16. And that really leaves us a couple of spaces, really 2 full-time spaces for children who move into the district. And just like one of the families that's taking a full-time slot in January, they are moving to Woodstock in January. The reason this has worked so well is because we're one of the few programs that is within walking distance for pre-K who can't ride buses. And so this partnership where the teachers and paraeducators are walking kids over at the end of the day has been very successful. So we have a group that comes from pre-K and walks, and then we have a few kids who are in kindergarten who ride the bus, and the bus drops off right in front of the pathway to the door where the children come in. So that has worked very, very well. One other piece of this is, of course, summer. And every year I have wait lists for summer, sometimes a year or 2 out, especially for pre-K, for which there aren't a lot of programs for summer that will take pre-K age children. And so parents are always they're happy to put their children in public pre-K, but then at some point they're faced with, oh my goodness, what do we do during the summer? And so we've always had a few spaces, but now I have wait lists for summer. So trying to add an additional group of 10 was what we had proposed doing. With our current staffing, we're able to do that. My hope is that between now and the next few months, I'll be able to hire a few more and we might be able to start a second group. The other piece of our expansion, the reason I mentioned the 55 as opposed to right now we're focused on 50, is about enrolling in the future and hoping and working towards being able to open a 3rd toddler group. For transitional toddlers that are about 18 to 24 months. So we would go from having 10 toddlers to 15. Our main classroom, our large classroom, licensing told us is sufficient for that number of children. So our hope is to work towards that goal in the coming year. So what we're asking for is $60,000. That breakdown is on the screen of $20,000 for mobile classroom furniture, $3,000 for learning and play materials. $5,000 is currently in there for portable sound absorbing room panels. The room that we're using is a large, very nice room with wonderful windows. but it's also got extremely tall ceilings. And so it has a lot of sound that echoes and moves around, and that can be really difficult for children as well as adults. But for children, especially if you have children who have any type of sensory issue, that can be particularly challenging. So we're trying to address that need. We put in $30,000 for the outdoor classroom activity centers and different things that are needed out there. And then $2,000 is in there as we all know, contingency funds are always a necessary thing in any project plan. I wanted to look at, as our last meeting talked a lot about trying to see what is the breakdown of the families and the children being served. We currently have 19 children that are either currently enrolled or on hold to enroll coming up in hopefully January. So it leaves us about 2 full-time slots. We have 16 of those families live or work in Woodstock, so about 84%. And given how strong that number is in our full day program and in this after school program, I would consider that that's probably a good estimate of where we'll fall going forward. We're hoping for, like I said, at least one group of after school children and for full day, and potentially more if I can bring in more staffing in the meantime. What makes this work, just like this is a good representative week. Lots of teachers out sick or their children out sick. And I have been able to have enough staff and stable staff and retain them and have enough redundancy in our staff to be able to manage that without having to close any classrooms or cancel any children attending. So one of the main questions that came up that I was asked to address were risks. And I don't think that our risks are necessarily any different than any other provider right now. Other than our external risks would be, well, if another center or the elementary school were to open a program for after school, this is specifically talking about after school, then of course there could be impact to our program. At this time, I don't see another potential for that, at least not within this school year, but you never know. And so that's something we will have to continue to look at as we go forward. But summer will help to mitigate that risk of any change there. The largest risks are always staffing, hiring or loss. I will say I haven't had any staff turnover in quite a while. So that's been very helpful to have staff that I can count on. And just to do that, it takes like really prioritizing my staff, retaining them, working through the flexibility that younger teachers need when they have their own children that they have to be out sick with, and trying to support them in that. So that's been a big focus for me over the last couple of years, and particularly during the pandemic and coming out of it, it's been very important. And then we're also trying to work on staffing from another perspective that can also help long-term as well as short-term, which is trying to, I've talked to several people in the school system about working on getting more high school trainees into programs in the area, not just mine, but initially I'm trying to start there. And having some of the kids who are in human services or nursing or education tracks for going into college start to get some of their work experience by working in programs like ours. So I already have one high school student who's working, and it's great experience because they are required to maintain all the same standards and do all the same trainings and requirements as anyone who's 18 years old and older would come into this type of program. So my hope is that we'll encourage these young people to consider early childhood education, which is going to only benefit our area and our state as we go forward in trying to meet the needs of communities and families.
Sorry, I think I mean, this has been, the financial impact and so forth has been published, and I think you guys are,
Yeah.
Are solvent and sustainable, and I think I think your financial data showed that. I'm nervous, Todd, about the time, and so I think.
Yeah,
that-
I think that I agree, John, with your sentiment that Ruth, you gave the great overview, and I think we can go to questions without looking at the financial impact, because we do know it leads to clear sustainability and solvency.
That is perfectly fine with me. And I only put it up there in case you did have
No,
questions.
I really appreciate it. And never before have we had too much information from anyone, so this is a first.
But if you would then stop sharing so that so that we can see everybody.
Working on that right now.
John, can you stop it, because you know it's going to come up with something weird. Ruth's got like one weird thing on there.
I don't.
Probably like a YouTube video, I'm thinking, or
I don't think I can stop. No,
Go
it's
to the
not.
top. Go to the top. Go to the top and hit stop.
No.
Not in the app.
Oh, hold on. I'm trying to find where it is in Zoom right now. This is right there. And
No, that's not it.
okay.
Go to
Sorry
the
about
very
that.
bottom. Go to the
Oh, there
bottom
it
of the
is.
share
How about
screen.
that?
Okay, you did it.
There you
That
go.
was so painful, but the
Sorry.
rest was great. That was just awful.
My eyes are tired.
Yeah, no, okay, let's Ruth, thank you very much. Thank you, Carrie. Let's open up to questions. EDC members first, because we feel like we deserve priority. Roger, you won't join. Michael Malik, go.
Just a kind of a broader question that Ruth kind of brought up. The lists, the wait list for all these programs, has anyone checked, like, if I have a child and I'm on a wait list for one school, am I on a wait list for every school that's available? So, I mean, is there a lot of redundancy over these wait lists? I mean, are they 20 kids for this program, or are the same 20 kids for the other program? And are we out competing the other programs? That's just a question. I don't know who's going to answer that one, but
I think that's
my question.
Todd, you want-
Yeah, I can speak to Michael. That's a great question. We've had it 15 times in 7 months, because it's impossible to get the actual answer. But every time we've been laughed at, and they're like, you have no idea how many people call us every day. So I do personally feel comfortable in the 75 number that we're looking at, that we can accomplish that goal. But it really is almost impossible, because it changes on a daily basis. And this is what's important in this exercise, is there are a lot of overlap for sure, but in the biggest need, where the economic development comes in with a younger group, where the 8 families we're leaving, we have dozens of families that need the help, the 6 weeks to 3 years. There's just like through the numbers craziness. So it's not a great answer, because it's always evolving, but literally people just laugh and say, trust me, we can fill the spots. And I tend to believe them with my research on this.
Well, and let me just add to that, Todd and Michael, that we did 2 surveys. Larry, in a minute, why don't you comment on the first one, Larry, and I'll comment on the second one, because you did some counting on the first one, and then I know the numbers on the second.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna make that same comment, which is, so Michael, with the surveys, when we got answers, these weren't gonna be duplications, because they're just single answers from, parents. So what, Todd did that first, sent out that first survey, and I think it was 40, mid-40s of people that said that they did not have childcare. This wasn't even waiting list. This was just simply they didn't have childcare. And the other interesting thing there was 40, I think it was 43 of the respondents said that either 1 or 2 of the parents was out of the working force because they couldn't get childcare and had to stay home with their kids.
Yeah, that's correct. It is 43, Larry.
Yeah. And the second one, John?
So the second survey was smaller respondents we had, but we identified with maybe 50 respondents. We identified 40 or 41 people who said they were lacking childcare, and 20 people who said they were lacking after school. Now, I don't expect that, given the response rates and so forth, I don't expect that covers the entire market, and it doesn't cover anyone who's moving here, thinking about coming. I don't think that I don't have a sense that there's demand for 150 spaces and we're kind of meeting 75. Do I think it's technically possible that, the 60 we identified, that there's only 70, so I don't think we're overdoing it. I would not go bigger than this without having, I think what will happen is we will spend this money. It will take a year to fill up at most. And then at that point, we will figure out whether or not we've given 105% of the demand or 50% of the demand. But I don't think we're going to find, based on the numbers, as best we can tell, and we've tried, as Todd and Larry said, as best as we can tell, I think I think we feel pretty confident that there's demand that we're not going to have unfilled spaces. I can't guarantee that.
And John, this is not like a switch goes off and all the spaces are open. This is going to roll out. So, whatever number is, there'll be people coming in to fill it in. So I don't think you need to worry about capacity. I
Yeah,
think
Patrick,
such a need now, the rollout is going to fill in as it goes.
No, but I think the idea is that, like, for example, in the 2 grants where they're asking for physical infrastructure, they're not going to build half the infrastructure and then stop if people stop coming. Whereas with Rainbow, in Rainbow as an example, if for some reason we did overestimate the demand, and I don't really think in the category where Rainbow is looking at, we've documented the full demand. But if for some reason we didn't, we would be saving the money because they wouldn't hire the teachers and we wouldn't hire it. But for the ones that are asking for physical capacity, that's going to get built, and then the demand will either fill it in or we won't. But again, I think we're confident that the demand will get filled in.
To interject quickly on that, because I think it's important, is that we're looking at, as John just mentioned, teacher hire, which is a metric that we can go and track and fund to, and we'll discuss that later in the meeting. But the infrastructure stuff, such as WCCC is going for, they've actually already started committing to this in a temporary way, hoping that we would be able to make this decision and fulfill it. But it is interesting. So each child needs a certain amount of stuff. And without that stuff, you can't get the license. So, like, for example, in WCCC's version, they had to get the stuff. It's not their ideal stuff, not the stuff they want us to get for them, but it's stuff that can check the box for the licensor. So the licensor can come in and say, hey, we approve this. So they've done that. So they sort of went chicken before the egg and hoping that we can support their cause in that way, versus a teacher credential or higher, where we'll have a nice tracking mechanism for that. But the great news is that in the infrastructure stuff, it's like, all right, well, if you brought in 20 kids and it's 30 grand for infrastructure, we already know our cost mitigation on that. We can make a great decision. So they're both a little different. I know we're not typically into infrastructure in this way in the grants that I've been a part of in the EDC, but this is where it's at. You can't get the license company. You have to build it, and then they come look at it and tell you how many kids. You can't envision it, and they say, no, do this or do that, and this is how many kids. It's sort of an odd structure with the state, but I hope that helps clarify infrastructure versus teacher hire. I'd like to continue.
Okay, Todd, can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely. You got the floor.
That's what I was to ask the question is, I guess my comment was more from the standpoint of the Bridgewater place is a year away. The WCCC could be right away.
It already is. Yeah.
Right. So what I was kind of saying is, it's not like a switch goes on and boom, there's all this availability. It's going to take time for all the different things to happen, whether it's teachers or whether it's build out or, so WCCC being ready now is great because there's a switch right away, but the other stuff is going to take time. So I don't think I personally don't think there's a concern for filling the spaces because they're not going to happen all at one time. So
and very good, Patrick. And I will point that it's not, I didn't ask them to or suggest they should, but WCCC has flipped that switch already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyone else from the EDC before I call on Emeritus Roger? Roger, you have the floor.
First of all, I want to say that was an excellent presentation by a clearly dedicated professional. And this would not be a make or break for me, but I would like to ask, given the name and given questions that have been raised in the past about public funds going to this, is it possible to have a very explicit diversity statement highlighted in some way by this organization, so that there's nobody in the community who feels that they are not welcome or their children are not welcome. And
Roger,
again,
Roger,
not. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Roger, I think that John can make some legal comments to this, but I can say that I share your sentiment, and I love what WCCC offers. And I'm also personally working incredibly hard with our child care commission to find a way for West to also offer something to alleviate those concerns in the most basic way. But I think, John, if you can comment on what Roger's question is, that'd be great, because you've given me an answer that I found fantastic.
Well,
Can I just make a quick point? I understand. I mean, John has commented on this legally, and I think absolutely, there's no question that this is illegal and something that should be done from my standpoint. I just, from the standpoint of people who do not necessarily share the same faith, that just to make sure that they feel like they're welcome at the WCCC.
I think Ruth should address that.
Sure.
Sure. So from its inception, Woodstock Christian Childcare has been and had an open door enrollment policy always. We have very few children who ever come to our center whose family would identify themselves as Christians. That is not a requirement to be there. It's not something that families have ever really questioned. If we always look at it as people have choices as to what they feel is best for their family and their children, but every child and every family is welcome there. It is stated in our parent handbook. And so I would hope that people would understand that we may teach from a certain perspective. Our practices and the way that we deal with people comes from what we believe, but we're not there to tell people what's right or wrong for their family or their children. We just welcome them and hope that if parents ever have questions, which I always address this when new parents come along, if they have questions, I'm always willing to answer those questions.
Roger?
No, that's great. And again, this to me would not be a make or break thing with this, because it's clearly incredibly valuable that's serving the broad community. I just think, an explicit statement, and I think the question's been answered, that they essentially make it clear that their faith does not intrude on anybody else's faith. So
It sounds like the handbook is that explicit statement, as well as the statement Ruth just made publicly now. So maybe that's sufficient for most people. But anyway, I understand your comment, Roger.
Yeah, me too, Roger. I appreciate it also. I do. Yeah, very good. Any other comments from EDC members or public, or shall we move on to the next provider?
Todd, Mika, as I understand it, Mika in her wisdom has suggested that if we are going to continue at this pace, which hopefully we can speed up a little bit, just given the nature of the next two presentations, but perhaps not, but that we just take a very short break.
Yeah, I'm
perhaps
fine with whatever. Yeah, I've had to go to the bathroom for 17 minutes. I've been coughing.
But it's truly 5 minutes. I think a virtual meeting like this is late at night. We don't want to go even later. So let's just take fights. Look at your clocks.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
It's 9:45. At 9:50, we'll start again.
Okay.
Thank you.
And who are we starting with, Todd?
We're going to go with TCC because I feel like the rainbow discussion might be a little longer perhaps, and TCC is above the rainbow. So TCC is going to be third.
Okay, fine. All right, so 5 minutes, 4.5 minutes. I'm going to mute us in here for a minute. Todd, if you're there, maybe in 1 minute, we're ready to start.
Yeah, it sounds great.
It just seems
Not gonna,
so sad compared.
don't
to
report this for the 30 people who are on this call, but it turns out that my key opens the office to the town offices where there's a big pot of little Three
Wait,
Musketeer
are we still
candy.
on mute or is that?
No, I've unmuted. Now public, but I can get to the candy.
Well, do they all know your sad dinner story? You earned, you deserve it.
All right, sorry. All right, Todd, I think we should get started again.
You're muted, Todd.
Yeah, I was saying I did my hair. I feel good.
Thanks for the break, everyone. I was starving and really just needed to get some food.
That was a really good idea. John played tennis. He won. So that was nice.
I lost.
All right, so Todd, you're,
Yeah, let's do
Go
it.
ahead.
Let's invite TCC. Logan, I believe, is here, perhaps others, to present on their behalf, and we look forward to hearing what we have to say.
I think I'm starting, Tesha Bus.
Tesha.
Because I started TCC, they wanted me to come back and just explain very briefly the history for anyone who is not understanding of what we are and what we do. So TCC stands for the Community Campus. We began as a COVID learning center. Folks came to us during their hybrid learning. So we sent them through their online learning day when school wasn't in session. We pivoted and when school went back into session, and now our unique value proposition is to offer families flexible, accessible childcare options and a core curriculum based on principles of building connection across age groups, brain development through play-based movement, and social emotional learning. 100% of our after-school care current enrollment in TCC is from the Woodstock Elementary School. 85% of respondents to a recent survey of families said that they live or work in Woodstock. Currently, we offer after-school care, 5 8-week sessions where parents enroll a month in advance for only the days that they need care. We offer teacher in service days, which is the first Wednesday of every month when there's a delayed start. We offer school vacation weeks, that's February and April break. We do town meeting day. We offer date nights once a month from 5 to 9 p.m. on Saturday evenings. We also offer summer camp. We focus on 4 2-week sessions, predominantly when summer soak is not in session. We also offer summer camp from 8 to 5 p.m. when most summer camps offer care from 9 to 3 p.m. And I will turn it over to Logan.
Thank you, Tisha. So I'm Logan. I'm the program administrator for the community campus. I was brought into the community campus at the start of the 2021 school year when it was becoming an after-school kids program and developing into a full-out kids program where we offered events and did the summer programming as well. So to go over our philosophy of how we kind of give kids the nurture that they need throughout the whole entire day is that they have a scheduled routine that they go through. We have coordinated with the school system to get the buses so that to make sure that we understand we're ages 5 to 12. So all of our kids can ride the bus. They get brought over and I'm there to meet them at the very start of their after school session. And then that goes all the way until 5:30. Through this after school session, we provide healthy snacks right away because, you know, kids get, you know, extremely hungry after the end of a school day. So we don't want anybody a little bit hangry. And immediately after we do snack, we are into a group activity. And we do not split up the group because of the ages. We actually encourage that the ages all play together. We think it's actually very beneficial for the younger kids to learn from the older kids, but also the older kids to be, they have a learning opportunity. And so this is where this social emotional play-based education kind of comes into, and we strive on that. And then you also see all the employees of myself and another employee. We are actively engaged in playing these games. So generally, you're going to see me sweating on the play field with all these kids because, you know, it's so nurturing for them to see a grown adult just having a blast and having fun in these activities. The end of the day, how we like to wrap up is making sure that the kids have a choice of creativity, and so that we provide free choice activities for them to do, whether that be outside choice or whether that be inside in Legos or a playhouse or cards or board games, whatever it may be. They have the choice of doing those activities versus us telling them what to do. It gives a broader range of them just expanding what they want to do. To build on it, we also do a lot of community building things. So I like to encourage our parents to partake in a lot of the community activities that we do with the kids. For example, this just last one, we had Thanksgiving. So we created a thankfulness wall, and we encouraged all the parents when they did pick up to write down something that they were thankful for. Didn't matter what it was. It could have been something small like a peanut to, full family fledged names on the card, and then it goes onto our wall. And our goal was to reach the whole entire wall filled up with these thankfulness things. So that's just one of the ways that we're engaging the parent activity with the kids to show that we're fully engaged. And then also to kind of expound upon it, this is kind of the same system that we run through our summer camp programming as well as our events. So even though it's a short time in our after school programming, the summer programming follows the same programming aspect of philosophy. So we are following a structured routine throughout the whole entire system. Parents are fully engaged in that, and they have that flexibility. And to expound upon on what Tisha was talking about, and to also clarify what Marlena will talk about in just a moment here, is we do have a very different way of doing our registration system. We started off in 2021 when I came in, where they had to register and they secured spots. When they secured spots, we could only secure 26 families. So if they secured, they're paying for their whole entire week, throughout the whole entire year. And we realized that it was actually hurting families and hurting the community, because they ended up, parents would pay for something that they didn't need on certain days. And it also took away from other people who only needed maybe 1, maybe 2 spots per week throughout certain months. And so we flipped that in the start of 2022 to create these section break weeks. So 8-week sections, 5 through the school year, and then 1 during the summer camp. And they register in a month in advance, and they pick the days that they want based on their kids' schedules. And this is a big part for all the ages from 5 to 12. So they are paying for the days that they need. And with that, we have more parents that if they need to add, they only, first of all, they request, but if they only need the 1 day, then they're not fighting over other spots or feeling like they have to commit to a larger picture of, paying for something that they don't need on a consistent basis. So that is why, if you look at our financial impact and you look at the top section, you can see how that impacts us through the year and through how it's going to look down into the 2-year session. So I just wanted to make that very clear, because I know that I worked with John and Todd to make sure that we clearly understood how we do our registration and how we broke that down. So thank you. And I'm going to pass it over to Marlena just to cover the last bit of information.
Hi, thanks, Logan. My name is Marlena McNamee, and I'm a TCC board member. I just want to go over what we're asking for. So our current location can handle 39 students, or an average of 30 to 35 daily. That would be the location max. To meet this demand, we'd like to hire 2 to 3 additional staff, offer health insurance to our full-time employee, and increase our program services budget to have more supplies on hand as enrollment increases. There is a lot of wear and tear on supplies in childcare. The cost for this payroll increase is about a little over $25,000, with an additional a little over $4,000 for program supplies. So our ask is $30,000. Couple budget notes. I feel like it's kind of getting the weeds a little bit, but I have it here. Projects. Our current enrollment is projected. The projections are based on our current average and historical enrollment numbers. And the enrollment, it fluctuates over the course of the year, as Logan mentioned, but averages out with our summer camp revenue, which is very high. Costs in the summer are higher due to longer hours for our staff. Average revenue per child in after school is approximately $380 per month. Average revenue per child for 20 days of summer camp programming is $1,100. After school provider rate wages were set at $20 an hour, and to calculate a healthcare plan for our full-time employee who we want to give health insurance, we used a local employer benchmark at $1,200 a month. And we also assumed in this budget a cost of living increase for 2023. And, you know, the risks are, you know, similar to what others have talked about. Enrollment, you know, could, you know, lag behind hiring, resulting in a negative cash flow per month. But the EDC grant would help with this. And the other risk is we would be unable to find staff. We might need to raise wages, and the EDC grant would help with this. So so that is our presentation, and don't know if you have any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Marlena. Would you guys, John, I saw your hand raised. Anyone on the EDC members on the Zoom first, or John, would you like to John, go ahead.
Yeah, let me just make a quick comment, because I worked with Elizabeth Reeves and with Logan on kind of trying to get clear in my mind and helping them to articulate, which I think their written proposal does make clear. And I'm not sure if Logan or Marlena kind of mentioned this fully. They hinted at it, and I just want to make it explicit as I understand it. The rationale for financial support for this grant is different than the other three. The other three are asking for money and they say, this is where the money is going to go. We're going to use that money to pay for these things, and these things are going to increase our capacity. What TCC was saying, in addition to what they've said today, is that we can't predict. We don't have a lot of reserves. The expansion, we're going to break even over the course of a year. The number of what the people pay, as Marlena laid it out, and what it will cost us to serve them is going to be a break even, which is sustainable, which is what the EDC asked all of the applicants to achieve, and which they've demonstrated that they will achieve. The problem with TCC is that because they have sort of they run 6 programs a year, and not every one of those programs may be positive. And if the negative ones come first, they're out of business.
Yeah.
Which is why they're not growing. And so to enable their growth, they need to have some kind of cushion.
Yeah.
It's possible, in fact, it may be closer to likely, that at the end of the year, if we give them $30,000, they'll still have $30,000. They might not, but they're not prepared. And I understand why, after talking to them, that they're not prepared to go the first thing that happens day one when they grow is that their expenses go up. That's what happens the morning of the first day. And if you have no money in the bank and you're running very short programs, unlike all the other providers where people are signing up for a much longer period of time, that volatility is something that they don't have the financial resilience to stand. And so they're afraid to grow. This will allow them to overcome that fear. And it's a rational fear. It's not an irrational. So that's the nature of, again, I said at the very beginning of this evening that the nature of these requests are different. And this is, again, a difference in that. And Logan or Marlene, Marlena, if I said anything wrong there, please correct me. But
no, you summed that up very well, John. Yes,
Thank
I
you.
would agree.
I have my own hand up, so I'll just call myself. I think it's important to understand something. Everyone's coming to us. This is the biggest bunch of proposals we've had since I've been a part of it, I think, ever. But what TCC is not saying is that they have an excitement and an aptitude to expand. They want to help people in Reading, where there's 0% help for childcare. They want to help people in the other surrounding towns, and they have a lot of ambition. What they don't have is a lot of deep pockets, right? So piggybacking off what John said is how we started this mission was when we gave, and this is not disparaging to the previous grant we'd awarded, I'm just stating the fact. When we gave $20,000 to the Woodstock Nursery, we asked about expansion, we asked about summer programming, and they weren't interested in that because their business was sort of set where it was, and they got what they needed, and we supported them, but it didn't realize a gain in capacity increase for the childcare situation. What we're talking about at TCC is a different thing, as John alluded to, is that they're saying, hey, we do need this cushion, but we're looking at increasing slots. So I want the members to understand there's a differentiation between what we previously awarded with WCCC and what TCC is trying to do. I think it's important. They want to grow. They're just in a tough position to grow, if that makes sense. Any questions? Okay, public comment. Roger, nothing? Where are you, Roger? I think he said he's good. Give me a thumbs up. Yeah. Okay. Going once, going twice. Anybody? Thank you, Marlena. Thank you, Logan. Thank you, Tesha. We appreciate your time. And let's move on. Now we are at the Rainbow, the fourth quarter. Let's get into it. Who is going to present for Rainbow? Lauren?
Lauren couldn't join us. She had her daughter's having an asthma attack.
Oh, okay. Well, that's terrible.
Yes.
Hi, Kelly.
So, hi, I'm Kelly Barger. I'm the current board president for Rainbow as of the last month and a half. I worked with Lauren on the proposal, so I will do my best to present as best as she would have
Yeah,
done
sure.
for us.
Great. Thank you.
So Rainbow is a full year program servicing children 6 weeks to 5 years old. At the time of our proposal, we had 24 children enrolled, 7 full-time staff and 1 part-time staff. We're looking to increase staffing by 5 so that we are able to enroll between 16 and 21 additional children in the 6 weeks to 3-year-old range over the next 12 months. So overall, our request is for $140,000, which would be kind of the stopgap between the delay with when we are able to hire an additional staff member and the lag with enrolling children as a result of the increased staff. So it's about a $10,000 loss on average over the next 12-month period. Right now, beginning in January, we'll be offering our staff a health insurance stipend for all full-time staff. And over the last several months, we've increased our average pay by about 20% to give our staff a more livable wage. So that's what is included in this proposal. And then to help us move into the black for covering these costs, we will be looking at adjusting our rate structure come the summer. So overall, that's a quick summary on what our proposal is, and to address some of the previous questions and comments that were going on earlier. Of the 9 staff that were mentioned that left Rainbow, 1 had already given notice when our director had joined. 2 were temporary or part-time staff that were kind of just working on an on-call basis as needed and decided that that wasn't working out for them, or they couldn't accommodate us as much as we needed them. 4 of the staff were on variances because they were not completing standard work required to work in childcare. So that was something that was an ongoing discussion at the time as to whether we continue to put in the effort for variances or not. And then 2 did leave largely as a result of the change in leadership. 2 of the staff stayed throughout all of this and have been with Rainbow for over 3 years. Since then, there have been 7 new hires beginning in May. 1 of these was with us during the summer and works full-time in public schools, but enjoyed her time so much at Rainbow that she's leaving the public school and is joining Rainbow full-time in January, and will be our lead infant teacher, which will allow us to expand our infant capacity. And then our part-time staff will be transitioning to full-time starting next week as a result of our health stipend and because she has enjoyed her time so much at Rainbow. So I think that's some positive changes that we have seen over the last year. I would say some of the departures you could argue would be a result of the pent-up ongoings of the pandemic, high stress work environment, not a lot of availability for vacations, constant closures due to sickness and whatever it may be. I'm not going to hash out the past, but I wanted to highlight some of the positives that have happened since then. And we have also been able to increase enrollment by 5 since October in our infant, in our 6-week to 3-year programs. And we are outreaching to families on our wait list right now in our infant room to increase enrollment. So we do have capacity. We've already achieved our 2 full-time hires that we're showing in our proposal for September and into January. So we are already achieving what we are saying in our financial proposal.
Thanks. Are you able to share the are you able to share the document, Kelly? I think it's good for the members to see the spreadsheet.
Sure.
I should be able to do that.
May I just ask one quick question before we
Yeah, of course.
move
Go ahead.
move on? Kelly, could you, I don't know what variances mean. Is that disciplinary action or could you circle back to what does that mean when you say?
Yeah, so to work in childcare, there are fundamental trainings that every staff member has to complete. And 4 of the staff members, you have to complete it within a 1-year period of joining. And if you don't complete it within the 1-year period, you need to have a plan in place as to how you are going to complete the training and basically fill out all the director and the staff member have to fill out all this paperwork and submit it to the state so that they can get a variance for being out of compliance, essentially. So 4 of the staff members were with us for over a year and hadn't completed the training. So we were out of compliance, but had a variance through the state at the time. But that requires a lot of additional administrative work and time and effort from everyone. And then there is question as to whether they're dedicated to being in childcare if they're not completing standard work.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much for that explanation. I appreciate it.
Sure.
John, would you be able to share the proposal, and perhaps Kelly, you can just give us the points on this. John, do you have the Rainbow Play School EDC grant proposal PDF?
Yeah, I've just put up, I'm just sharing now the spreadsheet.
Okay, that's a great idea.
And didn't you just ask me to do this? It's your great idea.
That's just not the top sheet. That's the top sheet. The top sheet is sort of
I have the whole PDF, but I thought sorry, do you want me to share a different page? I can do that. I have the whole thing right here.
well, I don't have in the Rainbow Play School EDC grant proposal.pdf.
Yeah.
I don't see the financials in there. I see.
Yeah, it is in there. If in the thing that's posted on the website, it's there.
Oh, okay. Maybe I have something that's.
So, but this is the financials, and actually, let me just, if you can see my cursor, I'm quite familiar with this, and I'm just thinking if Lauren put it together.
Take us through it, John. Since Lauren can't be here, I think it'd be a real advantage for you to take us through this.
This is very simple, and I think the comments that were made, again, every proposal is different. Here, basically, what you can see is that they're starting from a couple of months ago through to December. So over a 15-month period, they're ramping up number of teachers hired from 1. And then 3 months later, they hire the second person. Then a couple of months later, the third person, and so forth. So every 3 months, they're trying to hire a different person until they get to 5. When that person comes in, you don't immediately get the number of kids that teacher can support increases slowly. And so what happens is that the loss, and that in the first month that you hire that person, you're not making enough money to pay for that person because not all the kids that person can handle are paying tuition because they're not there yet. So the first month that teacher number 1 comes on is costing them $12,000. It's costing them $12,000. It's not the person isn't making $12,000 because there's also the costs of healthcare that they're paying that start right from the beginning. So they're losing $12,000 in month 1. that goes down as the number of kids from teacher one come in. They only lose 10,000 in the second month, and they lose 8,000 in the third month. Then they hire another person and their losses go back up again to 12,000, and then 11,000, and then they go back up again, and then they start coming down. And then once they get to 4 extra teachers, and teachers 1, 2, and 3 are now all fully loaded with students that are paying, with kids that are paying tuition, the losses really begin to drop. And then you can see starting in October, in month 12 or 13, they're now no longer hiring any more people. All they're doing, they've hired everybody, and now all they're doing is accumulating more kids. And so the losses start to drop dramatically until they get to break even at the end of 2023. And from this point forward, the revenues from those extra kids are going to cover the additional costs. So what Rainbow is asking us for is to cover the temporary losses that are going to get them from the spaces that they are now to the extra 17 to 20 spaces. And once they reach that sustainability, they're pocketing the enormous sum of $258 per month in December. That will keep them hopefully sustained. And so that's the nature of their proposal.
Thank you for that, John. I think something to reiterate about all these 4 proposals is that the children we're looking at helping with this money has a cumulative effect, which Larry pointed out numerous times to me and John, that it's not just the 75, it's hundreds and hundreds, because it will be year on and over. And so when we look at something like Rainbow, maybe they have everybody join up that second day that the new teacher is hired, and those numbers are a lot better. But what John and Larry did specifically was make sure that we really looked at like a reasonable scenario, because again, to Michael Malik's point, how do we know that there aren't duplicates or this and that? Well, again, even though they laughed at us, that's not a good answer. The good answer is we don't really know, but we do know from the survey, number one, that there are over 80 families, children that are looking for instant relief. So that covers our 75. So will we affect hundreds of families with this money, or 80 or 75 families with money? We don't really know. But what we do see is a self-sustaining business model, because enrollment fuels teachers' salary, and it's a cumulative effect. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and Todd, if I can I just want to make sure to clarify one thing, as I understand it, and I've forgotten who presented. I know Lauren's not here. Sorry, who was the woman who presented?
Kelly.
Oh, Kelly, sorry. You can comment on this, but I believe that the ramping up of the number of kids as each teacher is hired is not conservatism as much as it is policy. In other words, they're not planning to take additional kids when the teacher is brand new, but after 2 or 3 months, they're willing to ramp it up more. And so I think it's a matter of choice on the part of Rainbow to increase the teaching load, so to speak, slowly, rather than being conservative about it. But I may not have understood that. Kelly, maybe you can respond to that.
It is a bit of policy too. We have to go through background fingerprint checks, and that is taking 6 to 8 weeks to get back. And technically you can't leave a new staff member with children unless that check clears. So technically we can't add ratio. So we did build in that time frame. We have already hired the 1 headcount that was in September and the 1 in January. So we are achieving what we are putting in there. I'd say one of our risks is the potential longer delay between the hire and up to speed with enrollment, because of that gap on background checks, along with outreaching to families and families kind of altering plans that they already have right now for childcare and moving into a center or whatever they're choosing to do.
Fascinating. Very good. I will say, let's call on Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks. Does Rainbow have a waiting list?
Yes.
Is it extensive?
We have about 80 children on our wait list from 6 weeks to 3 years old as of last week. I think I ran the numbers. So about 40 in the infant room, 30 in 1 to 2, and 15 in the 2 to 3 group.
It's not enough, Kelly. I don't know why you're here. Not enough.
So your market is sound and what you propose to do is marketable. There's customers out there is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
Yeah, and I didn't ask the question of the other places, but they all seem to articulate that there was a waiting list. And, that kind of mitigates to a certain extent, this waiting period, or for lack of a better expression, is breaking in time for new teachers and kids coming in. It sounds like if you get a new teacher, you can sell that spot pretty quick, right? I would think. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of background.
Oh.
Joe, I think it's from you, yeah.
Oh. What I try to say was if you get a new staff member, you can
Joe,
what?
I'm just gonna mute you for 1 second.
Okay. Kelly, you heard what he said.
Sorry, Joe, it's just because you're something on your computer was causing.
Does that
like,
alleviate the waiting period, Kelly, or is that just state stuff?
Can you summarize the question? I think it was.
Joe, I
a
believe
little
Joe was saying,
distracting.
look, you have a people on a waiting list, you're hiring new people, you have a waiting period. Is that just internal situations, or does that have to do with state requirements?
No.
Go, Joe.
No, it's just that from a business perspective, and it sounds to me like they do have kids out there, they're waiting for a teacher to come on board, so there's not gonna be an issue of, well, can we sell this spot? It doesn't sound like that's gonna be an issue.
And Joe, I'm gonna mute you again. There's something wrong with your computer, so it's causing a huge sound. So we could understand what you're saying, but when you finish talking, I mute you. So if you don't mind, it's really loud. It's hard for us to hear. So if you do want to say anything, just unmute yourself, and we'll and then we'll mute you right in. Go ahead,
So-
Todd.
Kelly, do you understand Joe's question?
I don't think it was a
sorry.
question. I think it was a statement.
I think
Yeah.
Joe was making a statement, not a question. He was saying that he's concluded that you have sufficient demand to fill the spots.
We have sufficient demand, and I believe as we see demand decrease, we can stop hiring to support whatever sustainability and capacity that we need. But based on 80 people on our wait list, I think there is a high demand right now.
And to highlight, the rainbow is in our most vulnerable sector, the youngest generation up to 3 years old. So who do we have next? Patrick, go ahead, sir.
How many children can each teacher handle? What's the breakout of that?
The ratio varies by age group. So 6 weeks to 12 months is a 1-to-4 ratio, and then it moves up to 1 to 8 when the child is between 1 and 2, and then it moves up to 1 to 10 after that.
Okay, and
So it'll vary.
In your plan, have you planned for that variance? Because obviously, I'm assuming students all cost the same, or are there different costs based on age as well?
Right now, our rates do vary based on age. And we did factor in on a conservative level the ratios for what we could enroll. So that's why we're using the 16 to 21 range. So that'll depend. So we just hired a lead infant teacher. So we should be able to enroll an additional 4 infants as a result of that one hire.
Okay. All right, that was it for my questions.
Very good. Thank you, Patrick. Any other questions from EDC members or the community? All right, with no further questions, I give it back to Chair Spector.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're at the point where we are there any other, I think we're we should be ready to take a vote either as a group or singly. But I do want to check, is there anyone on the EDC who's not ready to take a vote?
Well, the only thing would be that whether we talk about oversight and.
About oversight, or maybe we should, Marion is suggesting that should we talk briefly about oversight before we take a vote? Is that, I would like to do that. I think I mentioned that in the past. Let me just pull up the,
I mean, I'd like to.
yeah,
Gonna turn into a pumpkin.
yeah, hold on one second, just launch, sorry.
Todd has his hand up, just FYI.
Oh, Todd, go ahead while I'm. pulling
Yeah,
it up.
I want to just say just in between here, thank you very much for the proposals, everybody. I know this is a late night, but this is a lot of money for the town to dictate out, but oversight is the most important thing we can do in spending this money. So I think that this is something that hopefully we can accomplish tonight. I really hope we can do that, but if we can't, then I would be willing to go and talk about it further. But I do agree that we need to really make sure that we handle this properly, and hopefully John has something laid out, because I know he's been working on this, that'll give us that confidence. So I just want to say that, yes, Marion, oversight is 100% appropriate.
This is what I have, it's hardly extensive, but I think these 4 basic points, I mean, obviously, I suppose there's some details underneath. Let's just talk about oversight for a minute. Quarterly progress update at EDC, at public EDC meeting, and an EDC contact person who's sort of keeping track of things and approving payments as, in between those quarterly updates. That I think is described fully in those 9 words. I think we would ask each grantee to come back quarterly and tell us exactly what's happening. And I think I would suggest we build into in all of the grants, just general language that basically says, look, if the plans change, the funding changes. Remember, by the way, that all EDC grants, unless alternative arrangements are made, are done on a reimbursement basis. So someone said at the beginning, I think it was Todd, that we don't just write a check for $140,000 and say, thank you very much.
Mhm.
We basically reimburse expenses that are documented for and documented for the purpose in which they're granted. So I think, so in any event, can we agree on the last 2 points on this page as just simple process points that we want to do it quarterly? I don't think that's too often. I don't think it's not often enough, given the nature of these programs. I think things can happen over 3 months, and we should be keeping tabs on it. And Todd has agreed to be the point person. So is there anyone who disagrees with that?
Just sort of a general question.
All right, Marion, and then Patrick.
So I mean, overall, I would hope that we can vote, because I know that the sooner we get it done, the sooner. But I'm wondering, in addition to sort of like checking in with a contact, do we have benchmarks in the proposals? And what happens if things take significantly longer? Do we have sort of a plan for that, or audits along the way, or any of those kind of?
Well, the way,
processes?
so the way we have, in terms of timing, we have in the past we have not in the past had timing constraints on grants. We can for here because timing is of the essence.
Right.
The grants, I think, are specific enough that we will know whether the check we're writing is for the thing that was asked for or not. And our policy has been, and we have done this in the past, that if we get an invoice, again, typically we don't write the checks, we get an invoice that the check has already been written and we reimburse it. And if someone submits an invoice that isn't what the grant was for, they don't get the money.
Right.
So I think that part of it, with respect to WCCC and Bridgewater.
I was gonna say, the only one with Bridgewater, I think it might be harder to tease out with renovation expenses. And
I don't think so. They've actually laid it out in their proposal. They laid out the pieces of the renovation. I mean, I suppose
I think those are the easiest because they're physical. I think the ones
and they're quite clearly
difficult is
identified.
the
If you look, I mean, it's a particular room.
Yeah.
They're going to spend $201,000 on the room.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that one, Yeah, in those, that one is quite easy. With respect to community campus, it is in fact, it's either a check or a credit line
Right.
that says you can draw on this up to this amount.
It's like a zero interest credit.
And for Rainbow,
I think, John, I think, Marion, because you haven't been doing this for 7 months, you don't have 7% of the knowledge that we might have, but you have 93% of it. I think that,
I probably have like 42%.
yeah, 47%, 50%, yes. I think if you examine only because I've been staring at these, if you examine the grants clearly, what we should do, in my opinion, is agree to write these checks. And I think that's not something we've done before, but I would suggest a proposal that in this specific new larger grant objective, I can go and with the intimate knowledge and the time, I would like to be the person to go and work with these facilities to go and make sure they're ready for reimbursement, not unlike our grant manager does that came through EDC funding, and then come and present it and have it ready and have it teed up. And I think if we have and John, I didn't mean to speak out of turn on this, but I've been thinking about this and I should have talked about it earlier, but if I have it teed up and can then present it and then we can approve it, I think that would be a great public way to write that check for the next thing. So in my opinion, for example, if we approve WCC, it'd be easy because they're already spending money to go get the thing to happen that we want to happen. But again, in a TCC standpoint, where it's basically debt financing, we need to have a public discussion on it and have these metrics. But what I'd like to do is spend my time to garner this information in a way that I think that the commission would have what they need to make a decision and present it. Not unlike the EDC presents to the select board. So
are you basically suggesting that the approval process, which I would be fine with, I think it's very robust, that the approval process for payments would be the EDC and that you would be presenting those rather
John,
than.
That's what I'm suggesting. I think that in this case, when we move to major funding, I think that it behooves the public to have not just one check writer, which may be you, the almighty amazing, who is, you know what I'm saying? I think if we can come to the commission and say, hey, we're ready for a check. Can we write this check? We meet on a monthly basis. I think that might be a fantastic way to go forward, but I'm up for suggestions on this. It's just something I thought of in the moment.
And can I just say, I mean, really what I wanted to hear was from having less than 43% of the knowledge is to hear the confidence that you have. And that gives me a lot of confidence in some of the details, but I think that's a great idea.
Okay, I agree. It's a very robust idea. Patrick, and then Roger.
You know, one of the things I think in terms of quarterly reviews, I think we need to see the spreadsheets that we've seen in all the proposals updated on that quarterly basis, so we can see where they actually are happening, what's going on, and if they're meeting it. I know when I go and get a loan from the bank to do stuff on my business, I don't get that money until I show them receipts for each thing, you know, in whether that's monthly, every 3 months, whatever time I have a bunch of receipts to show. And I think that's how we do it now, right, John? We don't give them money until we see the money spent.
There are some exceptions to that, but they are always for physical things.
Okay, because I think, you know, I think for WCCC, you know, that seems to me to be an easy one to track. They buy the furniture, they show us the receipts, we pay them.
Yeah.
TCC, I think, is whether you do it when you handle it as a credit line, you know, or you give them the money they keep in their bank. You know, we just need to decide that, I think. Rainbow to me is the outlier here in how we handle that. And again, is that just as simple as they hire people and they show a spreadsheet of how things change based on that? I mean,
I think it's about enrollment, Patrick. I think they have to show us they hire someone, they need some money. We give them that piece.
But then we don't mitigate the risk for them.
Sorry, what's that, Marion?
But
No. TCC isn't the one who has the volatility.
but they do all, right? I mean, don't they all have the volatility?
No. We would Sorry.
What you said, I thought you were saying Rainbow if you were to say based on enrollment, and I'm saying they have to hire.
They do. They
The whole
have,
thing is that we're offsetting
no,
the,
no, we would, no, no.
Metrics of adding a teacher equals X amount of students. And we're
Yeah,
looking
but they
for
don't get the
more
students right away. They don't get the students right away.
No,
And
no,
that's
no,
why-
we,
That's why I think Rainbow is a little bit of an outlier here, that we have to figure Rainbow out, because they hire a teacher. That teacher's not full until 2-3 months.
no, but so the only way that we can do it is, I think, is we say to Rainbow, okay, you're hiring the next person. Here's the money to hire the next person.
but on the higher.
But we're not, but what? I'm gonna answer the question. We give you the money on day one to hire the person. That money that we've just given them is not going to, we're not going to get that back. And then we just say don't hire another person until you hit the enrollment targets for that person.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we may lose money on, but again, we're not, we have to take some risk.
Our risk mitigation is that one unit of hire.
Correct.
And I really am, I will say that, as you guys know, how I'm a college dropout, I'm not into a lot of spreadsheets and documents. I'm really into making sure that this money isn't wasted in any way, shape, or form. So I think that when we look at the enrollment that they presented in the spreadsheet, we look at, hey, I hire one teacher, I'm getting 5 more enrollment from 27 to 32. Then they need to show us 32 before they come and ask for a teacher 2 or whatnot. And we come and present that to the full commission for a debate. I think that the great thing about the spreadsheets they've done, and each of the providers have done this, is that it's a transparent way on what our expectations can be from them. And whether or not that changes, that can be up for debate as well. They might say, oh, look, one teacher means this now, and we can talk about it. But the funding, I would really shove it in, just like John's suggesting and Patrick's implying, that one teacher, show us this, 2 teachers, show us that, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And with the physical, right, so that's how we would handle Rainbow. With the physical things, it's, show us the invoices for the things you said, and for TCC, it's a line of credit, and wherever the cash sits, it's a line of credit. And we want to, on a quarterly basis, I would think, understand their expansion and their expenses, if they're losing money one month, but they're making it. But we just basically, in each of these cases, we're tracking, the only things we're really tracking are the hiring of teachers, the purchasing of specific equipment, and the expansion of registrations.
Yeah, exactly.
I think those are the things we track across the different grants, and we don't spend more money on whatever it is we were going to spend until we're seeing, the registrations.
I feel like I'm ready to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to say one more thing. And I know it's community impact. And again, the school board hates me. I don't know why they asked me to be on it, because they hate me, but I'll just tell you, $21,000 per child. This, in an exponential formula for these young people staying in town, is a giant thing for our new school build, for hiring teachers, for hiring after school programs. So it really, in terms of economic development, is the most fascinating thing I've seen. It's just like, it's crazy the amount of money. If you can say that tomorrow, I'm going to give you a 6-week-old kid and they're going to stay here for 15 years, I can't tell you how much money the government will give you, right? It's crazy.
All right, Roger, I'm going to come back to you in a minute, because I do want to get the EDC folks. So Mika, you have your hand raised. Patrick, is your hand still up or down? But Mika, go ahead, and then Patrick.
My hand is down, sorry.
Okay, Mika, go ahead, and then Roger. Sorry, I will call in you, Roger. Mika, you're muted. Sorry.
This might be unnecessary. It seems like everybody is kind of on the same page, but I'm just going to say out loud, there might not be a way for us to completely mitigate all of the risks associated with these proposals. But I think that we can all agree that, in terms of the proposals that we've received at the EDC so far over the course of many, many years, I can't think of any of them that have a bigger impact than these. And I can't think of anyone any of them that really, give us some wiggle room for that risk. And so I think that the benefits far outweigh the risks, what few there are. And I think we can kind of all agree on that.
All right, thanks, Roger.
Yeah, I just want to say that, first of all, this is tremendous work.
Yeah.
And the discussion you just had about looking for ways to measure the benefits and the compliance with the project is exemplary for Woodstock government. I would hope that the rest of government could follow these goals or follow your example. And there's a lot of smart people who have run businesses or organizations who have handled a lot more money than this. And I have absolute confidence that this board or commission, I guess, whatever the hell you are, can manage the measurement and the compliance with this. And it's just tremendous work. And it really is, of everything the EDC has done, it's going to have the greatest impact on the well-being of this town and village. So thank you.
All right, thanks. Are there any other questions from EDC members? Are any other EDC members not ready to vote?
I can move if we need to move.
Okay, then, yeah. Can we have a
I
motion?
move we vote.
Well, yes, but I mean, do you have a motion to vote on?
Oh, well,
I'd like to suggest to Marion.
I'll
that
make a motion. Oh, sorry.
I'd like to suggest to Marion, because I would love Marion to do it if she is so inclined, to vote on the 4 proposals in unity.
Thank you for that language. I move that we vote on the 4 proposals.
Well, that's a process motion. I think
Well,
what you would
yeah.
want to move is that we approve. Perhaps you might want to say that you move that we grant the funding to the subject. To
Yes, that's what I'd like to do.
subject to the, well, okay, sorry, I think we do have one just before we actually make the motion. Are people agreeing with the top half of this chart? Obviously, we want to document any grant specific requirements. I would suggest what those would be to document what it is that we want to see happening, and that what we would want reported on, just the things we were talking about. So in the case of WCCC and Bridgewater, that it would be, we want to see the progress of construction, and we want to see the specific invoices and so forth for the things that they asked for. In the case of Rainbow, we want to see the teacher hiring, and we want to see the capacity, and not until the registrations happen with the other hires. And with the community campus, we would basically describing how we would be giving them the line of credit, so to speak. And with all of them, we would say we want quarterly updates, and that you would need to work with Todd when you want reimbursement or payment to justify that, and Todd and so forth. So that's what the document, any grant specific requirements means. And I would also suggest before we sign those agreements that they are basically signed in a discussion with the executive directors plus a representative of the respective boards. Sorry, there's a comment, Deborah. Oh, sorry, Larry. Sorry, Deborah first and then Larry.
Yeah, I think in addition, anytime they come back for an additional chunk is when there's an update. Like quarterly is great, but I think it needs to be, in the disbursement of each chunk, there is an update. And again, there's the requirements placed on each grant, but that every time that you come back for an additional amount, there is an update.
Agreed. And I think that's what Todd was saying. He would help to prepare and make
Right.
sure
I just
that it
think
meets-
quarterly, there's a difference between that and quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm agreeing with you. Sorry. Larry?
Just a small point you didn't mention is that one of the contingencies would be to show that when there's another grant that's involved in the project, that the grant has been secured.
Sorry, yeah, that was only with
Bridgewater.
That's only with respect to Bridgewater, is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay, so does that mean that we're okay with these bullet points as amended by this discussion? I think is.
Yes.
Yes.
Melting.
Anyone disagree? Okay, so then I think the motion would be to approve or not. But the motion would be to approve the funding for the 4 grants, subject to the conditions that we've just discussed.
It's past my
Marianne,
shut up.
Marianne, I want you to say it, Marianne.
I make a motion to approve the grants
As presented,
as presented,
subject to the
oh,
requirements
subject to the requirements
that we have just discussed.
that we have just discussed.
Amen.
Amen.
You may kiss the groom.
The
We
board
have a motion.
member.
Is there a second?
Second.
I think, I'm not sure who got there first.
Doesn't matter.
Joe, seconded by Joe.
Yes.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you, congratulations, everybody. Thank you to all the providers. Let me just lay out what the next steps are, and there may be a small hiccup. It's not gonna be material. The select board approves all of the recommendations that we make. The select board is meeting on the 20th. Their highest priority is to finalize the FY24 budget at that meeting. I don't honestly think that they're going to get to this, and particularly for the size of the grant, I'm nervous about trying to, we can push, but I'm nervous about pushing on something like this at a meeting where I know that they're going to be really focused on something else. And the packet for the materials went out at 3 o'clock today. So my suggestion is that we bring this, the next select board meeting is functionally immediately after, because it's early January. And so my suggestion, and it's really only Todd that I'm talking to, because I think the rest of us would be okay with that few day delay between there. But Todd, I think that the best way for us to avoid controversy here is to get this now on the agenda for, I think it's January 3rd, but I'll look up what the next select board meeting is.
I think you know what we should do? I think we should ask Chairman Joe what he thinks. And if he agrees, then we should do that for the best chance for success and debate.
I'm happy to ask him for the 2 alternatives, give him the 2 alternatives.
I think if you ask, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
In whatever way the chairman decides, I think is fine with me personally.
I feel like that's a good strategy. I mean, this, I don't know, this feels like an easy yes. There's a lot of work that's been done around this. There's not a lot of questions I feel like that they could really ask that couldn't already be answered. So, I mean, in my opinion, which means nothing really, but in my opinion, they could put this on the front end of their agenda and bang it out, get it done, call it yes.
I will say that John has already gone and sat in front of the select board and got their tacit approval on major grants and the direction we're going. So that feels good. But I will say that I do feel like, and again, I'm the most person to be the most annoyed with any delay whatsoever. I do feel like asking Chairman Swanson if it feels like it could fit is a good idea. Personally, I favor that idea.
Okay.
I think that's a very good idea, Joe. If I'm sorry, Todd, if Joe is comfortable, we'll just gauge it based on, he should be the one to decide, not us. I'm inferring, things. We'll let him decide, and it'll be one or the other. I'll speak to him tomorrow. So there are 28, well, now they're down to 26. We had 28 people at 8:20. I think maybe probably before that as well. We had between 27 and 29. So it was an incredibly dedicated, consistent group, unless people are swapping in and out, which I think is unlikely. So for all of you members of the community, the providers and the EDC members, thank you for sticking with this. We really appreciate it. I think this is a really exciting initiative. I think it is very wide ranging. I don't think it's going to play out precisely the way the spreadsheets say it will. I think, however, it is nearly certain that this is going to have a major impact on the childcare environment in Woodstock. It's a huge issue. It wouldn't shock me if we have to deal with this issue again in 2 years. And again, I don't think this is going to play out precisely the way the spreadsheets say and the exact hour in which they say things will occur. But I think we have an oversight process that is much more robust than we've had in the past. And what's interesting about this, I think, and then we'll finish, is this is going to change how we spend our time, because if we do more of these, a handful of them, because we can only do a handful of them, we're going to be spending our time on oversight and engaging with grantees rather than because that's what will be our responsibility. Very interesting. And this will be the first case of that. So if there's nothing else, could I have, not Marion, because you've already done your motion.
I'd like to just take one quick second to thank Todd and Larry. They really have been the people who have been driving this whole project along tirelessly, many hours behind the scenes. This is a huge initiative. It means a lot to the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you for saying that, Mika. And you as well. Thank you. But Todd and Larry really did do the lion's share of the work. So thank you very much. All right. Is there someone other than Marion who would like to make the next and final motion? Joe.
I motion to adjourn.
All right. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Deborah got that one in. Finally, seconded by Deborah Green. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Adjourned. Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Good night.
Brain was shutting down there. I couldn't even talk, John.